Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Grace Ingabire. I'm the CEO of RICTA. On behalf of Rwanda IGF Committee and RICTA Management, it is our pleasure to welcome everyone to the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum 2020 edition. Rwanda IGF is a forum that brings together public and private sector stakeholders along the entire civil society to discuss pertinent issues, opportunities, and framework needed to be a digital nation. I would like to extend a special welcome to our guest of honor, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, Mr. Yves Iradukunda. I welcome all the eminent speakers for taking your time from your busy schedule and joining us for this event. We would like to thank our sponsors. Without their generous support, this virtual gathering will not have been possible. Special thanks to all people who are not in this room but are watching online through different channels. This is the first conference conducted on a digital platform in line with the social distancing norms due to COVID-19 pandemic. This year's theme is Internet for ICT and Innovation in the Time of COVID-19. As COVID-19 accelerated digital transformation, the digital world definitely plays a significant role in the daily lives of people. Online world has become the new normal for all of us, evidently through online shopping, online food delivery, telework, teleconference, or even online education. The forum will focus on three main thematic tracks, which are internet access and affordability, digital citizenship, and e-commerce. With a panel of experts from different sectors, we are going to discuss how the internet had allowed business and service continuity during lockdown and how government, regulators, operators, and the private sector has used the internet to ease the disruption of our social and economic life. Once online, are you safe? Do you have skills needed to navigate? What has been done to protect citizens online? And lastly, how can we fully make use of opportunities around e-commerce? Are there enough e-commerce solutions or platforms to meet the needs of consumers in Rwanda? How should we motivate the community to embrace e-commerce solution in the new normal? Without further ado, I would like to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Yves, for his keynotes. Thank you and welcome, PS.
Thank you very much, Grace, for having me, and thank you for your leadership in organizing this year's Rwanda Internet Governance Forum. It's my pleasure to be joining the discussion and the conversation today, which I think is very timely and important given where we are today and with the situation of COVID-19. I think it's an opportunity to celebrate at the same time the various efforts that have been done. Looking at the agenda for today, the different panels that you alluded on in your introduction, it's really good to see many of the partners and stakeholders in the journey of internet and digitization efforts, that the stakeholders who have been central to the successes that we have scored. So speaking on today, I just want to be brief and celebrate some of the achievements that have been done, but also want to reflect on some of the lessons we are learning. And we've seen tremendous improvements. We've also seen significant progress, particularly when all of us collectively are trying to respond to the challenges that were brought by COVID-19. But even before that, I think Rwanda as a country has put ICT, particularly connectivity, and using the ICTs as a way to innovate, as a way to deliver services, as a way to really achieve our vision to be a knowledge-based economy. So even before the pandemic, I think we've seen a tremendous commitment of the government in working with various partners, first and foremost to create an enabling environment that welcomes different players within that journey of realizing a good infrastructure that allows accessibility and later on affordability. We've also seen that because of that commitment, many organizations have come on to create initiatives that are leveraging that infrastructure. When we look at education, for instance, we are seeing a lot of academic institutions, we are seeing a lot of programs that leveraging that infrastructure that the government of Rwanda has put in place to be able to help people innovate and realize a lot of solutions that we need today. So all of that is to celebrate. But as we celebrate, also we need to ask ourselves, what's next? You know, I think COVID-19 highlighted some of the gaps that we still have towards the journey of fully leveraging the internet and the other digital platforms that we have. So for us as a Ministry of Innovation, ICT and Innovation, we think that the journey needs to continue by ensuring that there is a digital inclusion for all of the Rwandans. In particular, looking at how do we continue to come together with various partners to invest more in digital literacy for the general public, but also specifically for employees and staff that are working both in private sector and public sector. So digital literacy, digital skills are key to ensure that we include everyone in that journey. And so a Digital Inclusion Council has been set up. We are working together with different players in the private sector, but also other organizations that are supporting that journey. And I saw some of these initiatives that are on the program that will be discussed. And so I'm happy to see that the Internet Governance Forum this year is bringing together all of us to continue the discussions and to ensure that we are leveraging what we have built to date in face of the challenges that we continue to see. Let me just highlight the fact that the government of Rwanda is continuing to commit to working with all of the stakeholders. There are a number of initiatives, as I mentioned. I can add on a few. For instance, when it comes to advancing participation of all the citizens, we've been running a campaign in partnership with MTN Rwanda, the Connect Rwanda, which aimed at raising awareness on the role of having a smartphone within a household. How does that unlock potential to get online, to be able to access services, to be able to enable children to access education, among other tools. So that's something that we are proud of, and we think will continue and go beyond, to even look at beyond Connect Rwanda as a campaign. How do we ensure that there is affordability of smart devices for each family to be able to access? And recently, you probably saw that Rwanda has been selected as one of the pilots to launch the GIGA initiative, which is in partnership with International Telecommunication Union and the UNICEF. And we're seeing this as an opportunity to connect all the schools in Rwanda. So already a mapping exercise has happened, again, to ensure that we can scale leveraging this infrastructure and connect more people in Rwanda. So I share those two particular initiatives, again, to reiterate the commitment of the government of Rwanda, working together with all the stakeholders, many of them, again, are on the agenda today, to continue on this journey, to leverage the digital infrastructure, to ensure that digital literacy is given to all citizens to be able to fully participate in this digital journey that we are on. So with that, I want to once again thank you for having organized this year's forum. I want to thank all the stakeholders that have been key to preparing and realizing this forum. I look forward to productive discussions that we'll be having today. And I also look forward to seeing outcomes that will continue to help us move forward. At the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, we are open to continue to work with respective partners, and we also hope that this will be another opportunity to draw insights that can help advance various initiatives and programs that we already have. So once again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. PS, for highlighting some of the effort of the government and the commitment that the government has with working with the stakeholders. So to all our participants who are online, we thank you again for joining in. And we would like to ask you for 1 minute as we move into the next, our first panel session. Thank you. Welcome back. We are starting our first session. And the first session is going to talk about access and affordability. And we have a good number of panelists and very expert in their role. So I'm going to start with introducing the first panelist, who is Mr. Charles Gahungu. Charles Gahungu is the General Manager of ICT Regulation at Rwanda. He also serves as Chief Technology Officer at KTRN. And prior to that, Charles serves as Head of Technical Planning Department at BSC. Our second panelist is Mitwa Kayemba Ngambi. She's the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Rwanda. She's a telecom professional with a career spanning more than 10 years in the telecom industry. She's actually the first female to be appointed Chief Executive Officer of MTN Rwanda. That is the largest mobile network operator in Rwanda. Prior to that, she served as CEO of in Ghana and Senegal for Airtel Tigo and Tigo respectively. Our third panelist is Mr. Eddie Sebera. Eddie Sebera is the Managing Director of Mara Phones Rwanda. He also served as Country Manager for Rwanda, Manager for KK Security Group of companies with overall responsibility for Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC for 13 years before joining Mara Phones. So prior to that, Eddie served as Chief Operating Officer for BCS. Welcome. Our last panelist is Cecile Mbashimiche, the Senior Communication and Events at Dot Rwanda. She has been working with Dot Rwanda since 2013 through its youth empowerment and digital literacy training. Welcome. And now to moderate this session, we have Dr. Ali Simba. Dr. Ali Simba is the Executive Secretary of East African Communication Organization, EACO. He has been on that position since 1st August 2017, and is a regional organization. EACO is the regional organization responsible for communication sector policy harmonization in East Africa region, and is headquartered in Kigali, Rwanda. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I take note that we have people coming from all parts of the world, so some of them might be coming from the night zone. I welcome you to this first session of the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum. It is an honor for me to moderate this first session. We are going to talk about access and availability and affordability, and I'm very happy to have the panelists who cover everything that we need in that area. We have government and the regulator, which is very key. We have operator, we have device maker, and of course we have civil society in DOT. This is going to be a very interesting session. So if you have questions, please, you're supposed to keep them until at the end of the session. Just keep sending them to us. We read them at the end. And to begin with this session, I welcome Charles. Charles was already introduced. He's from a regulator here. He will give us a talk on increasing access, affordability, and response to COVID intervention from the public sector. Charles, welcome.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm very happy to be on this panel, talking about the accessibility as well as the affordability. It is an opportunity since I was part of the internet or ICT development in Rwanda since some years back, around 2006. So I have seen major changes as well as development of ICT sector in Rwanda. So in terms of access, let me just give you a small background. It was in 2006 when I started managing the internet connectivity for the government. I remember by that time, we had only 10 Mbps. 10 Mbps, you can imagine, for the entire government. So it is really a long story, but today, when I see the government as well as the entire country, the private sector, people are starting really enjoying the internet connectivity. Remembering where we were in last 10 years, for me, it is really a big step. I cannot say we are very happy and we have achieved or reached the top. It is still ongoing, but we have come somewhere and we are at a good, if I can say, achievement. All this is the effort of the government in partnership with different stakeholders, non-governmental organization, as well as the private sector, which has contributed much in the development of the ICT infrastructure to assure the internet accessibility. So on that, I just want to highlight some of the policies that the government had put in place to assure the internet accessibility as well as the affordability. So if, as I said, as the regulator, we work hand in hand with telecom operators to assure there is coverage. So it will be very hard to talk about accessibility and forget the coverage. So the coverage which is provided by the operators is really, I can say, at an advanced stage where we have been working hand in hand, improving. So that kind of collaboration is really appreciated. So not only on coverage, the government has put in place, had a long strategic by implementing the national backbone. This also is one of the efforts, big efforts. Even the rest of the mobile telecom, they are connected through the national backbone. So that is also a big effort that was done. So it helps us, the citizens, to have really access on the internet. And the other different policies implemented or, initiated by different ministries, such as the ministry in charge of ICT and innovation, where you found that they have put in place some policies such as VAT exemption on different ICT-related equipment. Those are the different initiatives and policies that enable the ICT sector to increase, but it has a direct impact on the accessibility. So when we talk about accessibility, we have to see the entire environment as well as the facilitations that are in place. So briefly, when it comes to the regulation side, where mainly we are focusing, we have been developing and reviewing as well as doing the enforcement of different regulations that really helps the citizen to have the access on the internet. So in summary, that is what about accessibility.
Thank you, Chaz. Next, we go to Mitwa. She is coming from operator, and she will give us a perspective of operator. When we talk about accessibility, the government may do everything, but if the operators are not there, this is not going to be a successful endeavor. And we welcome our second speaker, Madam Mitwa, to give us a talk on the increasing access and affordability in response to COVID intervention from the private sector. Welcome.
Thank you, Simba, and good afternoon, everybody. I think the pandemic has been a very interesting period for all of us as operators in the industry. Just to give you a bit of context, maybe talking first about infrastructure, as Charles was talking about as well. Without infrastructure, there is no connectivity. So if I take you back to the period where lockdown was announced here in Rwanda, around March 20th, 22nd, somewhere there, as operators, what we tend to do typically is we do have headroom on our networks between what the utilization is today versus the capacity that our networks can actually carry. And typically that headroom is always sufficient for business as usual or organic situations. But from the moment lockdown was announced and you have everybody literally moving their usage from their office areas into homes or from their schools into homes as well, what we saw very interestingly, which could really be a case study in itself, was that usage in residential areas grew by 50%, 75%, in some areas even doubling at 100% in residential areas. Then when you look at downtown, the CBD, you'd see usage completely going down. So if you're an MTN customer during that period, around the first week of lockdown, you maybe would have experienced a level of congestion on your internet usage. And that was exactly why. The usage are dramatically shifting from one area to the next, where us as operators were not necessarily prepared, or we didn't foresee that kind of overnight growth on internet traffic. So in conjunction, of course, with our regulators, the first thing that we did naturally is to accelerate a lot of the investments that we had planned for the year. We literally crashed a program that was meant to last 6 months into a period of 2, just to make sure that the most important thing during that period is that people remain connected, they're still able to learn, whether it's at home or within groups, or even more importantly, people are still able to work so we can keep the economy going. So that was our first priority around infrastructure. The other thing that we picked up as an insight, which informed some of the change in plans that we embarked upon during this period of COVID-19 as well, was that historically we did have the ambition as MTN to enter into the home connectivity business. But that was a plan that we had seen maybe coming in around 2021 and onwards. But because there was this pent-up demand created by our consumers to have a very stable and reliable internet connectivity at home, we then now started exploring our connectivity solutions for the home. So Charles, you mentioned, for example, that back in 2006, you said, 10 Mbps was what was provided to the government, But you can imagine through this pandemic, 10 Mbps is what we're delivering to a home. So we've come a very, very long way. And the solution started as a trial back in May. And since then, closing now December as we forecast, we are likely as MTN to have connected 1,000 homes. And that is really amazing when you look at where we've come from. And because we've seen that there is a demand for this and market for it as well, it's also shaped our investment profile going forward. We're into 2021 and beyond. We are not only looking at mobile infrastructure, but also investing a whole lot more in home, because we do believe that in as much as COVID disrupted the way it did, we don't expect some of these trends to completely reverse when the situation stabilizes. So 1,000 homes this year, next year we plan on almost tripling that. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And I think it just accelerated a lot of the plans that we would have seen panning out in this country over the next X number of years, accelerated into one. So that was on the infrastructure piece. Once we settled down the network experience, of course, every day is an expansion journey. Demand keeps on growing, so we keep on investing, and those plans will continue for time to come. But as we settled the network, the next thing for us was to reflect on, so this community that we serve, because MTN doesn't operate in isolation of the community that it serves. So what is it that MTN can do to support not only the government of Rwanda, but also the people of Rwanda in the fight against COVID? So in conjunction with the central bank, for instance, we very quickly said, let's zero rate mobile money fees as an example, just to make sure that people are discouraged for using physical cash, which we knew could carry the COVID-19 germs. Therefore, we zero-rated transactions for a period of 90 days, which allowed a whole lot more people to enter into this digital financial services space. On top of that, quite a few initiatives that we are partnered with RBC with. As you know, RBC is the institution that is front and center of this COVID-19 fight. And with them, now you're able to dial, for example, *114#, where you can now see, you can pre-screen symptoms for COVID-19 and things like that. We partnered with them, for example, also on the street testing that's being done. They have really developed some interesting applications that they use within RBC. But we as MTN, knowing that our core business is technology and infrastructure, we offered them free access to the sites over the internet. And we carried that theme through, and I think we committed very early on in that lockdown process that for us, our contribution to the fight to COVID-19 through the strengths that we have in technology and infrastructure is never going to be a one-off exercise. So every day we continuously explore what it is that we can do. In the education space, because also that was an area where students were not used to learning online, even if it was our desire to see a completely online education system, it wasn't the case when we went down into that lockdown period. So we very quickly engaged also the Ministry of Education to say, are there any online learning platforms that students will be encouraged to use that we can zero rate or create free access to? So a whole lot of education websites, free access was created to allow easier access into the education space in as much as people were sat at home. And we did something similar also with the e-commerce players in conjunction with RISA and Ministry of Trade, also creating free access to allow people to access our content more freely. So quite a few initiatives that were done in response to COVID-19. And I think, like I said, COVID-19 is not over. So it's not that we are not continuously reflecting on what more can be done. The PS in his opening statement made a comment around Connect Rwanda as an example. And we know that no matter how much infrastructure we have, no matter how much free access we may also provide or affordable access we may provide, in the absence of people having tools to access that infrastructure, it's a moot exercise. So when we kicked off Connect Rwanda in December last year, we knew the need was there, but I think that need for smartphones across the entire population can't be overemphasized now, especially where people are locked down at home, either learning or working. So Connect Rwanda continues, and we look forward to, as the situation stabilizes as well, being able to provide free smartphones to people who don't have those, enabling the connectivity as well. So a lot of things that have been done, I think, from an operator space throughout this period, and I think, to be honest, a whole lot more to do still.
Thank you, Mitwa. Those are some very interesting initiatives from the MTN, but I believe from other operators. And when you are rounding up, you touched something about devices.
Right.
And I saw my brother Ed was nodding, because really you can't talk about access and affordability without device. And this has been a cry for most of African countries. Now, Ed is one of the person who is very important in terms of this issue. He's heading one of the first company to make a mobile phone in Africa, in Rwanda. And I welcome Ed to give a talk on local hardware for affordability, access, and a case study from Rwanda. Ed, welcome.
Thank you, Simba. Thank you for giving me the floor. Actually, when you look at the conversation, the way we started, and what's today's West Rwanda stands, you will realize that the journey started with the policies. And this was also touched by our friend Charles earlier. You see, already, for us to take such a decision, first to invest into manufacturing of devices, there was some work that was done well before. And this is how our decision to go into this sphere, or into this business, came from. Policies were designed, and strong policies in terms of increasing digitalization of the country, at the same time as tackling smartphone penetration. And when you look at it right after, the network operators, and Mito has mentioned it, have invested a lot in terms of infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And the infrastructure is there, but it requires people to consume it, to use it. So as we see it, it's like having a highway that is already there, but you need vehicles to go there, and then to use it in the most efficient way, but also to use it with a purpose to change our day-to-day life. And this is where manufacturing of smartphones idea came from, and say, how do we contribute to the last mile connection? And this is how the intention and the decision to go into manufacturing of devices came. And our journey started in October, when we started with the first smartphones made in Africa. And very proud to say also born in Rwanda, which is very good perspective in terms of showing that there's a way and there are places in this world where you can make things happen. But to do that, you need accompanying measures, and that was already there. And we started with the first 2 devices, and the response has been very phenomenal. In a way that the first thing that we wanted to make sure is it has to be of quality of service. It's not just a fact of dropping smartphones in the market, but you need to make sure that the quality is #1 priority. Then comes in affordability, because if we are talking today about increasing internet access. You can only achieve it if you tackle the affordability aspect of it. And this is where now we said, and surprisingly enough, as much as COVID-19 came to surprise everyone, it surprises us, but we used it in a very positive way by spending and using that recession time to think thoroughly in terms of designing and building new devices, but new devices based on the response we got from our customers. And the response, as much as they were phenomenal, but we also got various responses in a way of saying, can you provide affordable phones as well? Can we have everyone, irrespective of the level of where they stand in a pyramid, to join this journey? And this is how we use efficiently this recession time to work on new devices, which now in the next few weeks, subject to type approval, which we are finalizing, will be able to have a much bigger menu to our customers in a way that it goes up to provide additional specs, additional facilities and interesting specs that allow every customer to enjoy it, but also at the same time approaching and working toward the affordability. So that has been what I would say our contribution after seeing all the policies in place, after seeing the investment made by the network operators, and say, this is our contribution to make this journey more interesting and make it accessible to everyone. So that has been our journey so far, and we believe we still have a way to go. And if you look at statistics that are shared globally in terms of smartphone penetration, and especially in Africa, without disrupting us from the global market, but as you said, charity starts at home. When you look at penetration, we still have a long way to go. And this is where it's very important to work with the aim of continuing this journey of finding alternative solution to the affordability of the citizens of Africa, so that they can definitely be real actors of this digital transformation that we are seeing.
Thank you very much, Ed. That was very quick, but very interesting points from Ed as a manufacturer. The next speaker is from DOT, Rwanda, and I refer to them as a civil society. And they are very key in this equation of affordability and access. They take part in training of people, because you can have good policies, you can have infrastructure, you can have devices, but if people cannot use that technology, it's meaningless. And they know DOT and other civil society plays such an important role in helping our educated people to be able to access to this service. So I'm welcoming Ms. Cecile to give a talk on the accelerating digital inclusion in Rwanda Digital Ambassador Program. Cecile, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are really thrilled to share that experience in accelerating digital inclusion in Rwanda. As the moderator mentioned, you understand that at DOT, we focus on the people at the bottom of the pyramid. I mean the low literate, low skilled population. And first of all, to make sure that they're capable to go through the digital training program, what we do, we conduct the community audits and landscape assessment. And that helps us to understand the citizens' digital needs, so that we can design the programs which respond to their needs and purpose. And in addition to that, we also, when we are conducting that community assessment, we look at their capability and the relevance for them to use the online-based services such as e-health, e-agriculture, the digital financial services that my colleague mentioned, and other services that are based online. So in that case, we can understand that when we bring the programs in the community, they can be really consumed, and the community members can be capable to apply the acquired digital skills. In addition to that, you understand that in the community, we have different people who don't have access to the ICT facilities. So what we do, we identify the available ICT facilities like telecenters in different communities, including the rural areas. And then we can also understand who are the community members who have access to the feature phone, I mean those basic phones, and who are other community members who have the access to the smartphones. In that case, we can design a program which respond to the community needs. In addition to that, for the digital skills at scale model, we recruit the young people, fresh graduates, whom we call the digital champions, who are the ones who facilitate those digital skills at scale model in the community. So those youth, they are the ones who have a deep understanding of their community. So they don't know, they know what's relevant in their community in terms of digital internet skills so that their community can quickly adopt. So in addition to that, what else we do is to co-design the program with different community members. I mean, there are key influencers in the community members themselves, and including the digital champions. And then we validate the findings from the community, which we saw in the community. And then in terms of content and delivery, what we do, you understand, targeting the people at the bottom of the pyramid, you have to set concrete strategies to make sure that they're not intimidated by the capacity building in terms of digital skills training. So what we do, first of all, we make sure that the interface, it doesn't create an intimidating user experience. For example, in the curriculum we design, we make sure that we include the graphics, the pictures, which can make sure that those low literate and low skill population, they are welcomed in the session. In addition to that, we also use what we call the media mix, whereby you understand you have different categories of people with different literacy levels. So what we do, we make sure that as part of the programs, we include the text, visuals, like the simple navigation notes to make sure that every citizen, be it at low level, they can access to the training. Yeah, and in addition to that, we also provide them with the navigation notes, like to help them remember the way you go through, for example, to use a specific platforms, like for them to be able to go through the same process when they are no longer part of the programs. Yeah, in terms of the content delivery, we also work with the, we make sure that we localize the content. We don't work with experts who are not coming from the community. We work with the community members who are at the same time users of the platforms, so that they help us to come up with the local content in the local language and local terms, which will be easily consumed by the community members. And for the community to continue using the platforms or accessing to different online services, what we do, we set a platform whereby we provide an ongoing coaching sessions. It can be virtual coaching session, like phone coaching sessions. And we try to establish what we call community digital clubs. And we can vote like a community digital club captain, the one who is advanced in terms of supporting their peers to continue using the digital services. And in that sense, you understand that the community citizens who are not very advanced can be supported by their peers throughout those community digital clubs. Yeah, that's what I can share in terms of what we do at DOT to accelerate the digital inclusion in Rwanda.
Thank you, Cecile. That is a wonderful presentation from DOT. Civil society trying to take part in filling this equation of affordability and accessibility of internet. We have now finished the first phase, which is the presentation from our speakers. We are going to a question phase. What we do here, I'm going to ask our panelists 2 questions each, first and second round, and at the end we'll take questions from our viewers. So please, as the viewers, send your question in so that at the end we'll be able to read them for our panelists. To begin with, as you wait for this, I want you to picture this, that today we have 3.6 billion people who are offline, basically. And of those 300 million coming from Africa. In Rwanda, we have 62%, and this is recent statistics. Charles may confirm me on that. So we have 62% of the people who access the internet. So we have almost about 30% who are without access. And as you think about this number, my question will be on how can we reach the remaining 38% of Rwandans to be able to access the internet. And you know, as you go higher, the job becomes more difficult. So I'll start my question to Charles, who is from the regulator, to explain what policies and regulatory tools are in place to ensure every Rwandan can, at the end, connect to the internet. I know you talked about 10 Mbps at that time. Now we are far away from that. But now how do we have that much bandwidth now. Now our issue is how can we bring the remaining part of Rwanda to this equation? Charles.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. The question you asked, what can we do as a regulator to assure that every Rwandan had the access? Yeah, it is quite, I can say, somehow challenging, because there are so many things that are needed, required to assure that every Rwandan, and it is not only the role of the regulator when we have to make sure that everyone, instead it is the contribution for, if I can say, every sector, starting from even the sectors which you may think they are not directly related to ICT, but it is an effort, it is a joint effort that we have to do. But at the role of the regulator, number one, we have to make sure that the regulations and policies in place are really contributing or have a direct impact to assure the access on the internet. We do work closely with other stakeholders, institutions, to assure the environment. When I say, for example, the environment, look at, for example, we need to have service providers within the country to make sure that they are available, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of capability as well as the capacity. That's why it comes when we are, for example, in the process of licensing and offering the new license to the new service provider, we make sure that we do a good analysis to assure we get the right people on board who will be able to provide those services. That is one of the major and the core role of the regulator. So as an example, specifically this year, you have seen that we have brought on board an additional operator, an ISP who is now more focusing, delivering the internet to the home using the fiber. So which has really brought the change, specifically in the city of Kigali where they started. So this is going to increase the competition with the existing service provider, and specifically in terms of having the right infrastructure, which is the fiber up to the home. So this is one of the results from what the regulator have been doing. And I'm sure after Kigali, the service provider will expand their services to other cities. In terms of rural area, as I initially said, we are working hard with the service providers still, the operators, to assure we have coverage across the country. There is even even though we know that operators, that is like their mandate to assure the increasing the coverage, but even as a regulator, we do jointly work with the operators, even we do support by using the universal access funds to speed up the coverage across the country, even in the very, very remote area. So I can say that as a regulator, we are really working hand in hand to enable the environment, and not only the access, as well as assuring the quality of service. When we talk about access, it goes in hand for us to assure that it is not only the accessibility, yes, affordability, but as well as the quality of service.
Thank you, Chairs. I think we don't have much time. I'm going to limit the time you spend to answer my questions. I'm going to give you at least 2 to 3 minutes for each question I'm asking you. And second question will go to Madam Mitwa. And this is in regard to the perspective of the operator now. I know for you, while it's a challenge, but it was a problem opportunity. Now, what really did MTN, as an example of ISP, did during this pandemic, and what you are still doing now to increase internet affordability, availability, and accessibility of services to ensure continuity of service?
Yeah, thanks for that, Simba. And I think I won't touch too much upon infrastructure because Charles has covered that quite elaborately.
Right.
I think the only thing I would mention there is our continued commitment as operators to continue on this journey that we've embarked upon with the public sector to ensure continued coverage expansion, continued improvement on quality of service. And I think that's a given and the commitment is there. But the one thing that maybe I can touch upon looking into the future is the responsibility that we as operators have around innovation, and all the infrastructure may be great, but again, giving the example of smartphones as an example, where today's smartphone penetration is about 15% here in Rwanda, and this number has to move if we're going to widen the number of people who access the internet. So innovation is absolutely key. So you'd see, for instance, a lot of emphasis around ensuring the Connect Rwanda program are complete, but on top of that, also looking to various device partners, in fact, even including Mara, to ensure that the prices of devices do come down. At MTN Rwanda, for instance, we do have a smartphone that's retailing at 26,000. This is a really entry smartphone that allows at least the basic functionality for people to access the internet. So innovation in the device space, absolutely key, whether it's through device partnerships with the likes of Mara, whether it's through us sourcing low-cost devices that we can make available to the market. But I think even more interestingly, what the pandemic period has done, as much as it has posed challenges, it also exposed areas of opportunity. So, for instance, we're trying to ensure adequate participation in the entire digital ecosystem, not just by corporates such as ourselves, but with the SMEs, young content providers, application developers. And you'll see a lot more of us opening ourselves up and our platforms up to allow ease of integration between our platforms and these other SME or emerging technologies that are arising in the environment. So, for instance, at MTN, we made a very bold statement around opening up the mobile money API that will allow ease of integration to allow people who are developing e-commerce sites to very quickly enable mobile money payments from their website. So a whole lot more innovation, I think, is the role that we will play, not only through COVID, but also into the future.
Thank you, Mito. That is very interesting. I know you touched the issue that I wanted to ask Ed, but I want to hear from the horse mouth. So Eddie, what opportunities the indigenous production creates for internet access and affordability? An example of Rwanda.
Thank you, Simon. The first thing is in a very simple way. Let me approach it in 2 ways. The first thing is affordability. And to achieve that, obviously, as a local manufacturing, our focus is into further develop our devices in a way that the cost goes down significantly. When we achieve that, obviously, the price to the market is much, much cheaper. There's lot of things behind it, especially in the supply chain. As much as you can produce, we still depend on the cost of raw materials, because you can't have a fully fledged and complete supply chain that you control entirely. Every manufacturer around the world, we all depend in a certain way on the production of raw materials that is still controlled by certain factories globally. However, which goes in the second aspect, is our way to achieve this affordability, which will now respond to how we can increase internet access and other facility through the devices, is into now moving into a second phase, which we have started, is creating partnership with device financing partners. As much as you can produce, and Mito had mentioned it earlier with one of the devices that even MTN has, there is still a portion of our society which cannot afford to purchase it directly. And that is a reality that we have, not only for Rwanda, but even for multiple African countries. And this is based on the purchasing power of the lowest citizen of the pyramid within our society. So now, what's us as a local producer, since we have the capacity and we've already invested in the production, we've already invested in the infrastructure that allows that production, and we've already invested in accessing raw materials. We are now engaging into a second phase to now find device financing partners, whereby we can make it much, much more accessible to the end users by allowing them to access to those devices in multiple installments. A good example, when you look at a smartphone device at a certain price, already in the most acceptable price to provide a quality devices, we will end up having a solution to the end users in the market where they can afford to pay maybe $1 a month. That is where we are heading. It may appear to be a dream, but it's reachable. It's reachable with a partnership model. And a partnership model include, again, the network operators, because we need them. It's not about just providing the device. You need to give them means to use it, and they need a backbone. And the backbone is the network operator. They have multiple services that they are ready to offer. We provide the vehicles, and then the third partner, who's the device financing partner, allows that facility. So it becomes a more contributive approach with multiple layers, but multiple partners at the end, which will benefit the end user.
Thank you, Ed. Last question for this first round will go to Ms. Cecile. And here is in terms of literacy. The question is, how is digital literacy handled to support the uneducated community make use of the internet? If you can use 2 minutes, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Simba, for the question. And for this time, I'd like to focus on the lesson learned that we saw since the beginning of this pandemic crisis, which was also, which have been helping us to continue delivering our programs. So first of all, what we notice is that the digital skills are vital. So the digital skills are needed for everyone, including the community members who are at the bottom of the pyramid and who even don't have high level of education. So they all need the digital skills. So like before we could continue our programs, what we did, we conducted a rapid assessment to learn more about the community members' virtual engagement readiness to continue participate in the programs. Because like before that, all the programs were delivered face-to-face, like to support the community members to really understand and apply the skills. So that rapid assessment helped us to analyze the readiness of the community members to continue participate in the programs. And what we saw is that the community members focused on the connectivity, access to gadgets, and even have that opportunity to get enough coaching. And that accessibility to digital devices was very key. And you understand that the community members without access to devices were completely left out in the programs because we had to continue the programs. And what we did with those, at least with access to the devices, we put them in the common user group, I mean the CUG. And then for those very few with smartphones, we gave them the internet bundles, like for them to follow the digital skills programs virtually, because we had shifted from the face-to-face to exclusive virtual delivery. So you understand that a big number of community members who don't have access to the digital devices, and even connectivity was not a very issue, because we were very committed to give internet bundles to those at least with smartphones. So the other ones were completely left out. And something else that we learned is that we have to continue offer phone conversations in the form of coaching, because it's not very easy to a community member to learn about internet technology remotely, because even when we do it face-to-face, it's not easy. You have to put many efforts to make sure that it's really something relevant to them. So that's continuous phone conversation, coaching to support them to apply the given digital skills was very key. And another thing is that, like at the very beginning of the pandemic, there was affordability in terms of digital financial services. That was a very motivation of the community members to express that willingness to acquire skills in terms of how to use mobile money services, because it was a very key skill, like for everyone to access to different services, be it in rural communities, be it in urban areas. And finally, in terms of the programs we offer, we've learned that there is a need of flexibility and adaptability, because the program is designed to be offered face-to-face. So you understand that we had to adapt to deliver the programs virtually, which was very important. And for a few community members who were able to participate in those virtual sessions, they really, it was successful, and they were somehow role models and examples in their communities. Yeah,
thank you, Cecil. Now we are receiving some questions from our viewer, and I'll start with Chaz. This is, I think, the question to you. The question comes from Dr. Christian Dibope. He's a former chair of Afrinic. It's very interesting to have Dr. Bope with us. The question is, elaborate. You're supposed to elaborate about the policies to access, to enhance accessibility and affordability, and if possible, giving examples.
Thank you so much. The different policies we have, if I have to elaborate more, I can link also with the obligations that we have given to the operators. That will be the first direct one that has big implication to the coverage as well as to the access. As long as we give license to any operator, we are sure we have some obligations which he should meet. Then the regulator will regularly monitor how the compliance of the operators. So when you monitor clearly the compliance of each operator, then you are sure that they fulfill. Secondly, is the policy related to the quality of service. We have the regulations that goes to the quality of service, and the quality of service also has a component of the coverage. So that is the second policy we have. So on that, we have also some other policies that governs, like the regulations that regulates the type of the devices to enter within the country. So in reality, it will not be easy to enumerate each of the regulations, but those are just examples of the regulations in place that really have a direct impact on the accessibility.
Thank you, Charles. The next one is a very quick one to Eddie, and if you can just make it very simple. The question is, what is the definition of affordable in Rwandan market? How much is it affordable?
That's a very good question, but it's difficult to answer as well, because you see it varies from the level of society where somebody is represented. So I'll be totally wrong to determine what is affordable to any citizen because we all belongs to different category of our society. But how we define affordability is how can it be accessible to the people, not in terms of how much, but how simple and easy a person can actually acquire the device. And that's how we should actually define it, not in terms of an amount.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. That is a very interesting answer. We are now coming to an end of our session. I know we still have a number of questions, but the time is not enough. So I'd like to just summarize what we've covered today. This is a session about affordability and accessibility. And we had the policymaker and the regulator here who gave us an insight of what policies and what regulations should be done to help this endeavor. We had Madam Mitwa from operator. They are the one who building infrastructure, following the policy from the government. She has told us what happened during the pandemic, the efforts, the idea of changing their plan to accommodate what was happened. That was very interesting and a very good cause for MTN. But we have Ed, who gave us an insight on the devices that are coming out from Rwanda as the first manufacturing in Africa. We are very happy to learn about that, and we are looking forward to the new devices, the design that are coming, which we are due to COVID. This tells us that where there is challenges, usually some opportunities are coming out from there. And also we had from Rwanda. Rwanda is a civil society organization dealing with helping people to how to use the services and technology. And they have told us all of their plans in the ambassador program, which I think is going to help us cover the remaining part of Rwandans who have not been connected to the internet. With that, I thank you all the panelists for the very interesting presentation and for the organizer for welcoming me and my panelists to this session. Thank you very much, and for our viewers also.
Thank you very much. We thank Dr. Ali for this session, and we thank our panelists. So we are on to our next session. But before that, I would like to remind a few things to our participant online. So you can follow us on YouTube, RWIGF website, and on Zoom. Also, feel free to tweet us using the hashtag RWIGF. And we are going to continue on our next session titled Digital Citizenship in the next 5 minutes. So see you in 5 minutes. Welcome back. We are starting our second session. We just finished the first one that was on access and affordability. And now we are starting digital citizenship with a good number of experts again, and I'm sure we're going to get good insight. So our first panelist is Mr. Arthur Franzen. Mr. Arthur Franzen is the strategy manager at eRainbow. With this position, Mr. Arthur is in charge of building long-term strategic plans as well as defining eRainbow future development. Welcome.
Thank you.
The second panelist is Mr. Akili Shema. And Mr. Akili Shema is the division manager, cybercrime investigation at Rwanda Investigation Bureau. And prior to that, Mr. Shema served as director of cybercrime investigation at Rwanda National Police. Welcome to. And then our third panelist is Mr. Innocent Asimwe Mudenge. He works with Rwanda Information Society Authority as division manager of the Digital Cluster Coordination and Community Development Division. So basically this department has a keen role in coordinating the digitalization of Rwanda's economic, social, and governance cluster by implementing the ICT strategies within the various sectors. Welcome. And to moderate this session, we'll have Mr. Robert Ford. Robert is an information technology expert, consultant with special area of interest in e-government solution and ICT for development, regional integration, trade policy, and trade law. He has a vast experience in television journalism, public relations, and communication with a combined experience of 20 years in Rwanda and East African. So welcome, Mr. Ford, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Angel. Thank you, my very good panel. we'll be discussing digital citizenship. And digital citizenship is a very cross-cutting subject that deals with how we use the internet and how we get connected for our own benefit. How does the internet make us the community players that we are supposed to be? And I'm so glad to be having a very rich panel of experts who are going to help me to explore this topic. Without taking so much time, my first question, I think, is going to go to RISA, which is the implementing organ of government's ICT policy and strategy. First, bring us to Paige. What does it take for someone to become a digital citizen? What is digital citizenship? How can you break it down so that our followers can understand what it's all about?
Thank you, Ford. A digital citizen is, in a few words, is a citizen who is equipped to be able to, equipped and skilled to consume digital services, to be able to participate in the society responsibly, be able to consume online services. But if you look at, for example, in the context of Rwanda, we have a lot going on. We are talking about achieving the knowledge-based society by 2020, and we've had a number of services that my colleague might talk about in a few minutes, e-services online. We have a lot of participation of where a citizen is supposed to be consuming a lot of services that have been put online. And then the question becomes, how do I, as a citizen, be equipped both with the skills and the literacy, with the connectivity, with the devices that I'm supposed to use to consume these services, do it responsibly, be aware of the security parameters that are in that space. So, which is what we are even working towards at RISA in terms of digital literacy, to see that citizens in Rwanda are going to get to that mark. Right now, in the NSG1, we're talking about having 100% of 16 to 30 years of Rwandan citizens, which is the youth bracket, fully equipped with digital literacy at that level, and then the adults who are 31 and above to 60%. But if you see the study, that different analytics that show that we were at about 8.99% literacy. So you can imagine in the next 4 years, we have to foot a 50% gap from 9% to 60. So that the citizens will be equipped to be able to survive in this digital space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe a follow up on that question. I do appreciate the effort that has been made by different stakeholders to keep the trajectory going up.
Yeah.
But I would have wished to hear from you when do you think we shall have the last Rwandan connected to the internet, so that every citizen is now connected and can be able to equitably use the internet and has the skills he needs? What framework of time are we looking at?
So what I would say about that is that when you look at the next milestone that we're trying to achieve as a country, everything is tied to Rwanda to 2024. So 2024 is a place where we're talking about digital. We're talking about citizens that will be digitally equipped to achieve, to be able to use these resources. We're also talking about connectivity that will have gotten to a level where Rwandans, we have like at RISA, we have different initiatives like OGN, which is the government network where we are connecting people on the 4G so that they're able to consume. We have 4G connectivity that is at about 96% coverage in the country. So the efforts we have different efforts to have, because when you talk about the last Rwandan to be connected, you know, I can have connectivity in my neighborhood, but I don't have a device that connects me to that network. So the different initiatives like Connect Rwanda, Connect Rwanda that all of us have heard of, where we're trying to give devices to citizens, and then so that they're able to consume these different devices.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good interaction. Arthur, following up on that, Irembo, government to citizen service delivery. would you share with us if you have any corporate social responsibility to do skills development or to impart skills and knowledge to the users so that we can equitably or we can comfortably call you, efficient service providers to citizens?
Thank you, Ford. I think indeed the access, as it was mentioned previously, is very important, and it's important that no one is left behind so that everyone can access the service with the same level. For that, we actually provide some trainings. I think I would say at 3 levels. The first level is to government officers themselves to ensure that we have a collaboration where the usage of the platform is well understood by both parties, both on both sides. We need to understand the institution and also on the institution side. So this is, I would say, the level 1 training with highly educated people from the institutions that already know how their institution work, but that also need to understand how Irembo work. Then the second level is we train the agents. We have a network of 4,000 agents all across the country. So literally in every city, you can find one or several agents that can help citizens to have access to. And as Mr. Innocent was mentioning, if not the citizen himself has access to internet, at least he knows that in his or her neighborhood there is someone that is able to provide access. So we train also these people to ensure they provide good service. And level 3, we also definitely train the population. So this is, I would say, something which is more on the long term, because you cannot train 13 million of people in a week. But we have some sensitization campaign, and we have some training to ensure that everyone is aware of Irembo, some let's say awareness campaign, and also everyone know how to use at least the basic services.
Thank you very much. Rwanda Investigation Bureau, a very good office.
Thank you.
Yes. Would you like to share with us what kind of policy, strategy, any laws in place that the government has put in place for you to use as a tool to make sure that we have responsible digital etiquette in Rwanda?
Thank you so much. And Rwanda government put in place the mechanism and the laws, even the regulation about the cybercrime, cybersecurity. We have the strategic plan. We have the policy, cybersecurity policy. We have the cyber laws, and that's the law. We have also revamped the mandates on prevention, to prevent the crime, the cyber crime, to prevent. Yeah, we have the tools to prevent people to do awareness, to teach people how to protect themselves online. That's, we try our best every time to have the session like this session to talk to people and to tell them how to protect themselves. If something happens, they can come to RIB. RIB is not just investigation and arrest people. No, we have also mandate to prevent people.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it must be a tough job, because when you look at how much information that is out there on cyberspace that is accessible to different gadgets that users are having in their hands, they are dealing with a lot of information. They are processing a lot of data. And I feel I wanted you to take us through some of the case studies that you have dealt with that seemed very challenging in the context of what you do as an organization. If you could share with us, if it won't hurt anybody.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, now I think like I can take like 2 to 2 years. We don't have an armed robbery in Rwanda. And people now, many of them now move from the physical thief to digital. I say, okay, I can go to a platform, I can make social engineering to someone, and I can have information, and I can sell the information. Now we have many cases that people come, lose money, can buy something online, and with a fake website, and the money gone. That we have some case, the case. And another thing, we have child online also, because like when you take this time with COVID, child at home, some child can access the wrong website, or you can see the people, the stuff you can be able to see. That one also we work on it, and now we're talking about the social media. People put everything, rumors, need pictures, everything is put online, and now in that prevention, many of we talk to them, say, please, this is not good to put online. We try to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to also bring to our viewers in Rwanda and around the world who are following us on different mediums, on social media, on Zoom, and on live stream, to please observe, because we're observing social distancing, we couldn't be able to have you in one room. We know you could have in here, but we encourage you to share the links that we have shared with possible participants around you and around your communities. This is about internet governance. So it has nothing to do with technology experts and gigs, and it's he who uses the internet. This is your forum to be able to share with us your opinions. Risa, I need to come back to you. If a friend gave me this to ask you and says, please, Mr. Ford, could you ask either Risa or Reed? They were very specific, and they made sure that Irembo is off the hook. They said, could you ask those two people about what strategies they have about cyberbullying, online hate, sexual exploitation, privacy settings knowledge, and plagiarism? What do you say? What do we tell you?
Yeah,
you can go first.
Yeah, my colleague will add on to that. But in short, for the past few years, at RISA, we've been doing, every year we have cybersecurity awareness across the country. Because this, like my colleague was saying, in COVID and of recent, it's really peaking, the whole online crime. But in the past 3 years, cybersecurity was a whole new concept. And we had to ensure that it's not only known within the city, within the town, but we're doing across the country awarenesses that are going to bring people to the knowledge of knowing that this is how you should protect yourself to begin with. And then even maybe like let me use a case study that will clarify this. There was a child online protection policy that was approved by cabinet, and right now it is effective. But if you look at the steps of implementing it, we have protection and prevention. This is what you do before anything happens. But there are different entities or institutions that fall under those different components. When you detect crime and then you get to a level of takedown, and then you even support and even arrest if need be, there's institutions that go, it's like a handover. You start with awareness and all that, then when you and arrest and everything, it's handed over to RIB. So it is like institutions in government working hand in hand, RISA, the Ministry of ICT, RURA, RIB, to ensure that this space is governed. So that, and like my colleague said, within the cyber regulations that people have to work with, they need to understand that these are the limits, which is actually maybe what I would say right now for the audience that is following, is even to have them be interested in reading these policies and strategies to understand. I'll give you an example. The data privacy and protection law is going to be approved soon. When that happens, is that today I might have my privacy abused, but I might not have an instrument to use to go to law. But when that is approved, it's going to be in place, but some people won't know about it, that they have the rights to consume it. So what I would motivate the audience to do is to go out there and read what they have in their rightful, because maybe what I can mention is that, like, for example, the data protection, privacy and protection law, it's been reviewed and validated at different levels, translated, and it's yet to be approved. So when that is out, it's going to be another tool for people to use to be able to know their rights and know that so and so has invaded my space, and these are the institutions that I can take my claim to, and then this is how I can be supported.
Thank you. I think that's a very good intervention and information you've shared there. I want to come back to Irembo. A Rwandan who does not live in Rwanda and needs to enjoy the benefit of your services. He needs to apply for a certificate of celibacy, for example, but he lives in Kazakhstan. This service can be accessed after a certain amount of money has been paid in Rwandan francs. How has Irembo dealt with the challenge of, for example, mobile financial services that is cross-border or that is beyond the territory of Rwanda? How do you intend to solve that, or how have you solved that?
Thank you for your question. So I think first it's important to precise that 99% of the services are used by Rwandan citizens that live in Rwanda. So this is really, I would say, the focus. Obviously, thinking about Rwanda everywhere is also very important, but the core of Irembo is also, I mean, most of the people requesting the services currently are in Rwanda. But that's an extremely interesting point that you're mentioning on the fact that also people that are abroad can use it. We have a payment platform that accepts different currencies. So for instance, if you would book a COVID test now on Irembo today, you can pay it either in Rwandan franc or in USD. So even though you may be in Rwanda, but maybe you are just traveling in vacations, either because you are Rwandan with no Rwandan franc available or because you are international, and then we give you the option at the same price, which is the exchange rate, to pay either in dollars and in Rwandan franc. So we have this possibility thanks to our proprietary payment platform.
Thank you very much. And I think following up on that question, I'll come back to this. Specifically mobile financial services now. In Rwanda today, you can be able to pay any service using your phone. You pay with Rwandan francs. What happens if someone in Burundi orders for a designer clothes in Rwanda, or someone from Tanzania? How do we do that? Cross-border mobile financial services.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Thank you, Ford. There's a conversation that is going on that I need to highlight that maybe eventually when it is realized, it will solve this. There's even within the regions, within COMESA, East Africa, there's a conversation around establishing a clearinghouse. So what this means is, first of all, by principle, the money that is in your mobile account is not in an MTN account, it's in a bank. So if you're talking about your money that is in an MTN account, let's say in BK, if it is to be moved to a different bank in Nairobi, it means you're going to involve a clearinghouse, more so like a regional outreach, so to say, that is going to take care of all those, including if I'm banking in, if the account is in France, who is going to take care of the exchange rate?
No, but today I can pay for services in Kenya without consulting my bank.
Yes,
I can actually have my mobile wallet.
Yes.
Settling a payment in Kenya or in Uganda, because they're in one network area. So how soon or fast can that also happen with other countries, specifically in our regional bloc?
Yeah, I think the conversation that is going on. So, for example, it even becomes easier. So, for example, if you have Airtel Rwanda and Airtel Uganda or MTN, it becomes straightforward because these are exchanging between their common wallets. But then there's a conversation that is going on to be able to establish a framework that all these other entities are playing in. And then I think in Rwanda, Rura is at the forefront of driving this, representing on the face of the region, including the Backers Association, in collaboration with the telecom companies, so that this interoperability can take place. But at the moment, what is happening right now in a more feasible way is having me pay a mobile money payment in a Ugandan, in an MTN Uganda or Airtel Uganda, because they already have common wallets and that interoperability in between the telecom companies. Yeah.
That's a very good. Now, my last but not least of the questions, coming back to Rib.
Okay.
You've been dealing with different cases, cybercrime, and a range of all the area of the other different points that people talked about. One of the most challenging job that I think you have is trying to make a case that there has to be some level of an acceptable discipline that Rwandans and everyone using the internet uses it responsibly. Yeah. And we've seen what social media has been doing in our society. One of the social media cases that you handled was very controversial. How do you come back to society to tell them that you want community to be partners, to feel that you are together in this game, that you are both together in trying to make sure that we are all responsible citizens? And one of the controversial social media issues that I'm talking about was the young kids who did what they did on social media. How would you use this platform to ensure that the Rwandan community understands that what you do is for the common good of everyone, and that you would want community to be partners in making sure that we build a responsible society and in digital citizenry?
Yeah, for that, we are working with other ministries, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of ICT, RISA, and other institutions to build that culture, to educate people, to understand and to know the risk. When we put the picture online, we don't have any control on that one. We want to see that one. That is like we are working with the other ministries to educate people, to teach them how to use. Because some of people just go online without think about it twice before they post something online, and it can be harmful to other people, to kids who go online, to many people. That's why okay, let us have the platform to exchange to talk to with the other ministries and to teach people how to. It's not like say. When I go when I go to my home, I close with the key. When I go to internet, that's everything that we need to teach people to protect themselves and to understand, to think twice before to post something online. It can be a crime. It can be committed.
Okay, Risa. I think Risa today you're having a very big job to explain a number of things. Someone is asking that about the intellectual property law. Yeah. That what has Vista done to ensure that the implementation of the intellectual property law, which protects the content creators really, to make sure that it is in place and it is respected, and what kind of enforcement measures have you put in place?
In collaboration with RDB, actually more RDB driving, yes. So to say, is there are very many multiple awareness campaigns. They have prepared, they have organized campaigns for different SMEs. They have organized campaigns for the people in the private sector to bring them to speed of what the instrument is able to do for them. There are a number of awareness campaigns that have happened in the space of innovators for them to know how this my patent, how do I protect it? So ideally, because the instrument is new and is being adopted, the number one stage or the step one that was being done right now is purely awareness for people to know, to encourage people to read, to understand, and know how do I register my patent, how do I ensure that it is maintained moving forward, and even how do I go and claim that it was maybe, let's say, taken by someone if they've invaded my space. So in short, it's basically awareness right now, because like I mentioned, the instrument is new. The instrument, many people didn't know what it entailed. So it's been awarenesses for the SMEs, for the business people, for the innovators to know what it entails and how they register their patents and what it means, because you even find people being called and say, you know, there's a space of innovation. Just come and give out your idea. But right now, innovators are starting to open up their eyes and saying, I want to just give out my concept note, and it's out in space without me being able to register my patent. So which is what but from at least the experience, it shows that it's going to be a journey for people to know how to really practically implement this.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. To Reeb, and we are getting a question from from Afrinic, which is the Internet Numbers Registry for Africa. They're having a question. how has Rwanda harmonized regulation to combat cybercrime? Because some of the crime may not originate from Rwanda,
Yes.
but could affect Rwanda. What steps have you taken to harmonize regional or international law on cybercrime?
Okay, thank you so much. We are part of Enterprise of Police. We work with Afripol, with ICANN on when we have some investigations. And last time Rwanda, I think I'm not sure, we ratified the Malabo Convention on Cybercrime and Data Protection. I think it was passed to the parliaments. Is still waiting for the cabinet to approve. We have some measures. We work with other countries to combat cybercrime.
Thank you. This is to Irembo. Can you tell us if any of your services is not hackable? This is a citizen, a concerned citizen is asking. That can you talk to the Rwandan people and give them the comfort they need that none of your services is hackable?
So I think the question of servicing hackable is a question for all tech companies, including the biggest ones in the world. It is one, obviously, for us as well. We have dedicated teams that work on security and that constantly improve. So the Irembo of today is more secure than the Irembo is today. We have not been hacked because we are managing, and we have also some processes to ensure that, you know, there are some steps, and that as soon as we would see, you know, one thing that would seem suspicious, we could shut down. So, you know, it would prevent from any damage. And as far as we are today, we have not been hacked, and because we are working a lot on that, tech companies are facing that, and specifically growing and successful tech companies, when they start being attacked, when they start growing, they start being attacked, and we see that for Google, for Facebook, for all of them. So never say never, but we have strong teams working on that, and this never happened. So I'm confident that we are providing maximum safety for the citizens and the users of the platform.
Thank you very much. One other interesting question is coming from the public, and they're asking, and this is for Risa. Risa, this is very interesting for you.
Okay.
And saying Rwanda is readying itself for the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
So in future, we may be using drones as taxis. Can you tell us if they will not interrupt the electric poles? This is a concerned citizen. They're asking questions.
Yeah.
That won't electric poles and electric wires become a risk to drones in case they become motor taxis?
No, okay. Maybe for just to give it a background, the fourth industrial revolution is going to require very many things, including skills, education. We're going to require in Rwanda. We are working on the skills and education part, working on the R&D part, working on the infrastructure part, and we are also working on ensuring that we have the skills to acquire these devices. So whether it is the 3D printing, whether it is robotics, whether it is drones, whether it is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, anything that we're going to implement has a way of implementation. You know, if we're going to have drones working as automobiles, definitely they're going to have their pathways put in place effectively. If you're going to have selfless driving cars, they're going to have the artificial intelligence to do that, like we're seeing in the Arab Emirates, you know, the whole pilot phase that is going on. So that concern shouldn't be there. And there are even going to be more fascinating things even beyond just drones becoming automobiles. So the fourth industrial revolution is going to unfold a lot of interesting things. Yeah, and we should be expected.
Thank you very much. Now, this one is another interesting one. I think it's going to go to Irembo. He says, so many countries have been leading in developing applications that the whole world tends to adopt, like WhatsApp, like Twitter. What is Rwanda developing that could lead the world as a technology? Risa. I mean, Irembo.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thanks a lot. So first, I think that maybe I would just say that Irembo Gov, which is, you know, our flagship product that has started in 2015, is one example. Irembo Gov is fully built and maintained and operated by a team of Rwandan people. So we have software engineers that are all currently in Nyarutarama working on this. So this is something we are really proud of. It is something purely national, and we have a lot of countries that envy us and that call us every week to say, oh, this is very interesting. We would like to have an IREMBO in our country as well. How do you did it? And I think that we should not underestimate the importance of government to citizen relationship. This what we do with IREMBO Gov, because it's really one of the key pillar funding milestone for any, as you say, any country to grow, and so this product is looked at by many countries. So I think we can be proud of this one.
Thank you. Although this does not concern RIB, but let me send it to you. Another citizen has asked a question. He says, when MTN mobile money started, there were so many agents across the country. They created jobs. But MTN has now put on applications where you can get your services online. Isn't government killing the chicken that laid the golden egg? This is from a citizen.
Yeah.
RIB.
Yeah. I think that.
Do you have jobs for these agents?
That is the truth. Yes. We work with MTN every time. We have many services. We work with them, we discuss with them to protect the money. Because I think since the COVID started, the lockdown, and we got many frauds online. Many people was complaining, lose money, and say, okay, let's work with MTN and see. We not close their job, no. We can have many jobs. And for that, we work with them. We work with MTN every time we talk to them through Rura, through National Bank of Rwanda. I think we are not lose
No,
their
I
jobs.
think what they want to know is that agent who used to sit under the yellow umbrella trying to process all this, you probably could get 10 users every day and you could make some money.
Yeah.
Now, all those services can now be done by individuals.
The individuals.
What will they do under this umbrella now? Because they are still there, out there. They're still, it's a huge network of agents. How can we get their jobs? This is digital citizenship.
Yeah. I think that's a big for.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe what I can say is, every time there's a new innovation, people get scared that they'll lose jobs. But one thing you've noticed is technology advancements actually creates jobs. Yeah. So right now, if I was an MTN agent, what I would be thinking about is diversification. Why would I have the knowledge of transacting these services? I'll only serve MTN. I can go and do equity banking, I can do BK banking, I can do Airtel money under one umbrella. And I think they need to start to diversify, put in an element of entrepreneurship, but I don't think that digitization should take them out. You have even when that is happening, you always have one citizen that needs IREMBO service that won't be able maybe to print, for example. I have gotten my birth certificate, but I need to print it. And then you have a stationery. So as we transition into having e-services provided, this citizen is going to need very many services. So if I was an agent, I wouldn't rely on only MTN, but diversify to make sure I'm serving IREMBO, I'm serving equity, I'm serving Babil, whatever they come looking for. I'm able to serve that. Whatever might go wrong on one player, I still have a covering on the other one. So that is the balance.
Maybe this is also a great opportunity for IREMBO to use the same agents to process some of the government services. Yeah, that's very good. We're having a question from someone at the at Africa again. They are saying, in reference to Rwanda's tech ecosystem and government effort in terms of regulation, how has Rwanda adopted, or how is it adopting and acquiring the IPv6, the Internet Protocol version 6? Because as you know, IPv4 is very fast running out of space. Who wants to take this? Risa.
I'm not very conversant with IPv6, but what I would say is maybe I believe that in the advancement, which is actually one of the things that Richter is a leader on, and of course Risa in one aspect, I believe they're working towards adopting it, and I'm not very well conversant with that space of networking, but that transition, I believe that Rwanda is doing so.
Yeah, and I think one participant from Huye is asking, when shall we have our internet in Kinyarwanda? Everything, I don't know what he means.
What?
But he says, when shall they have internet in Kinyarwanda? I don't know.
I think maybe they're talking about the whole, we have Google Translate, you're able to get, the other day people are making fun. The first time we got a tweet that you can translate in Kinyarwanda, people are making fun that when you put a word, you get a different word. But one thing we need to understand is that you cannot wake up in the morning and everything is the way to go. So, and it's more like wanting to go to a hotel, for example, and you want to get reviews, but every hotel you visit, you never give reviews. It's going to take a general effort for people to keep on saying this word exactly means this, and then we'll have a fine-tuned dictionary. So I believe that is where we're going, and this will be able to suffice.
Okay. Yeah. I'm coming back.
Maybe
you want to do a follow-up on that?
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, I think I fully agree. As a non-Kinyarwanda speaker, I could even see the Google Translate, evolving and improving because as you use it more, and you can say when it's not the right translation, then the experience is even better. And for me, when I translate an article, for instance, it's more and more close to if I ask a Kenyan speaker to explain me to what it actually means. So I think it helps give a good picture. And I think as Mr. Renoson mentioned, it's not going to happen overnight, but the trend is very good. And maybe to also mention, to answer on this question on Kinyarwanda, I'm just advocating for Yembo that it's available in French, English, and Kinyarwanda, obviously, for all services.
Okay. And following up on that, I know government citizen service is an ongoing exercise because there will always be new services that government wants to get to citizens. But where we stand now, how far have we gone in having all government services to citizens incorporated on IREM?
And that's an excellent question because the BOT originally in 2015 was targeting to have 100 services, and we have 100 services today. So we could say we are there. But then if we look, we still have a lot of requests or things that sometimes we do something and we say, oh, this is not yet on Irembo. It's funny. So I think there are many services. We try to be 80-20, so really to tackle first what is used by many people. So for instance, birth certificate, marriage certificate, all the things that are required like thousands, millions of times every year. We need to have them on the platform. Mutual subscription, RSSB, it was the season like lately. We have had like 1 million subscription on the platform. Then you look first at this very high volume transaction, and you can always have some services that have maybe lower volumes that you want to digitize. So I would say it's almost endless because also while you are digitizing some new services and emerging, also even with the current institutions, while it's digitized, it's not done because we have launched Irembo 2.0, which is a new interface for better user experience and for a better agent experience. This is forever. You always improve the design. You always try to streamline the way it's done. You limit the number of papers. So even a service that has been digitized for 4 or 5 years, we still need to work on it to improve it and to keep it seamless. One of our product design principle is make it simple and then make it simpler. And that's really what drives us every day, actually.
Okay. I'm very happy someone has asked something about RIB now. Okay. If someone says, my phone, it was an iPhone, got lost on New Year's Day. I reported to RIB, and I even gave them a picture of the GPS that I had connected onto my laptop. Until now, they have never gotten back to me.
Okay, for that one, just it's not the first one about iPhone. Many times people come say, I have the information from iPhone, from iCloud, just I want to show you, please go there. Many times we go there, we don't never find any phone. Because I don't know if the information iCloud have is the same that we have. Many times we go, we search, we can't find the phone. I don't know why in Rwanda it never work. In 100 cases I got from people complaining about the iPhone, we go there, we never find any phone. Now for us, we are using the iMail to track the phone. When we are using the iCloud, we never find it.
Actually, on a follow-up question still to you is that there has been increased theft of money using mobile money, where people use other people's numbers to send SMS and get a code that requests them to change their passwords. How are you solving this problem?
I think that one, I think since last is done because of we work with MTN and Rula and National Bank of Rwanda. Now we change. It's not the agent who starts pulling, we start is you, the owner of the money or the owner of the phone, who starts. We have the challenge because sometimes the people, the thief was starting pulling money, and when you just put the password and the money gone. Since, I think since last week, now the system changed. Now is the one who wants to withdraw money is the one who starts the operation. I think I see from this weekend up to today, no case I received from outside from mobile.
Okay, Risa, do you have any follow-up question? Do you have a follow-up support explanation on that? As government implement and people in charge of the policy and law?
I think mainly it's been around awareness from our space, and we were happy with the initiative that she mentioned, where now if I'm to withdraw money, it's supposed to be me, the owner of the money, that initiates the process. Because again, you can imagine someone is busy doing whatever they are doing, and then they receive a code. Actually, what the people in fraud, the level they had gone to, instead of you receiving someone telling you to give them the code that you don't know, they would even go to your friend and they hack their WhatsApp. So now it is your friend that you know who is telling you to give them the code. It becomes more easier. But now the awareness is what has brought people to be enlightened to that. But of course, that layer of me being the one that initiates the process that has become, unless you take my phone and you have my code, you both have my PIN code, but you also even have the mobile money PIN code, then that way you're able to take the money. But otherwise, if I have my phone, it's going to be hard for you to start the process without me doing so.
Yeah, very good. One question from the public. COVID has come. Big numbers of people have connected to internet. Has COVID been a blessing or a curse?
There are advantages.
To the three of you. So maybe each one of you could give.
Yeah. I'll give a few points. There are advantages that have come with this crisis. I'll give maybe the next session is e-commerce, and they'll touch on that. But the rise in e-commerce adoption in terms of people shopping online within this season, there are people who didn't know how to go about the issue of trust. If I order things, will I get them home? So that has happened. Teleworking. Some people didn't know that this can even be a reality in Kigali or generally in Africa. But now we are there. So many things have happened in this crisis that we hope we are going to keep on riding on, even when things go back to normal. So I believe there's that advantage besides the negative part of it.
Arthur?
Yeah, I think saying that it's a blessing would be hard because it has been, and it's still a very tough time for many people. But I would say it has been an accelerator of digitalization, and also, as we say, an acid test. So many companies, including companies that we thought were very sustainable. I'm taking the example of Airbnb, who have been around for 10 years, that they had to lay off 30% of the staff because they just didn't see it happen. So I think it was really an acid test to say, okay, are we ready to work remotely? Can we keep the same cadence? Can we deliver the same quality products remotely? Can we provide the same quality services to the client or to the citizen, even if you are remotely? So it was really, okay, you say you're digital, let's look at it. And it has been, I think, an accelerator. So hopefully the good things that we will keep from it, from us, but for all companies, is to say, okay, let's think about how we could do it remote and how are we backed up to be sure that we can do it remotely as well.
First is the time to teach people to make awareness, to tell people, please be aware outside it's not safe. Keep your passwords, change your passwords. Please don't trust someone who don't know. I think it's the time for us to do a strong awareness campaign to our citizens, to everyone to understand it, to know how to protect themselves online.
And a follow-up question on that, actually, still on COVID.
Yeah.
He says, during COVID, people are not being charged money to transact on mobile money.
Yeah.
But soon after the relaxation of restrictions, they reinstated the fee. This has compelled people to want to withdraw money. And the central bank uses a lot of money to print more money. So wouldn't that central bank use that money they used to print as a subsidy so that the cost-free transaction mobile money stays? This was a long one. This was a long one.
Yeah, it
in short, someone thinks that although
it can be reversed.
Yeah, or because transacting free compels people to keep transacting online.
Yeah.
But the moment you put a levy, which of course makes a business sense to the investor, because he needs to get return on investment.
Yes.
And someone is saying, government, you would actually be spending the same amount of money to print more money in France or in UK, wherever you print money from. So get these papers off the hands of people by putting that as a subsidy.
That's true, and that makes some level of sense. Why do I say this? It's because even when you look at countries that have gone what you would call purely digital or cashless, it has not eliminated bills to be printed completely. Mm-hmm. But the point is that even when this fee was removed, it was clearly communicated that this is being removed for 3 months. It's going to be coming back, and even that proposal or the discussion that might go in that regard will take us quite some time to get there. It's not like the National Bank can wake up one morning and say, we are done printing we are done printing these notes, and then we are going to switch to digital. So it's going to be, it can be a conversation, and if it was to be done, it can take so long. But maybe what I can clarify is that when the telcos were doing this, they clarified that it was going to be 3 months, and these different initiatives brought people to the whole cashless ecosystem. And we believe that the advantages that they met can make them stay there. MDRs were removed. For example, at MTN was 1%, now it was 0, merchants weren't being charged. So we believe that that movement can be maintained to increase the whole cashless agenda.
Thank you. We are unfortunately coming to the end of our discussion, but I'm still getting more questions. Maybe if you can deal with this last one. It still comes from Afrinic. Someone is saying, is the Rwanda government ensuring that new telecommunications equipment being imported into the country support IPv6 in reference to IoT and fourth industrial revolution? This is from the Internet Registry.
So as a standard, I think first of all, every telecommunication or electronic device that comes in is certified by RURA under the whole type approval regulations, which means they have to honor regulatory requirements, the EMC, the SAR, and all these other requirements. Then they get the type of approval. But then it's not yet a prerequisite in terms of saying that if you bring the ones that are tied to IP4 cannot be used. But it's going to be a transition as we get to using the IP version 6 moving forward.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our discussion today. I thank our viewers, wherever you are, in Rwanda and around the globe. Thank you for your participation. It's been a very interactive session. Digital citizenship, I think from the very good panel of our panel here, you are able to understand deeply how to become a responsible citizen. We've discussed a wide range of issues, ranging from access, usability, digital etiquette, knowing what to post and what not to post. We want to thank you from wherever you are for having spared time to be with us in this very interesting discussion. And to my panelists, thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much for your intervention and your immense wisdom on this subject. We can't feel better that we chose the right people to discuss the right subject. You've gone a long way in touching every little bit of the concerns of our population and everyone who was listening from wherever they were. So we want to thank you very much for your time and participation, and for the organizers of the occasion. Thank you very much for Digitech, who gave us space to be here and enjoy the fantastic facilities that they have here to make sure that this was a successful session. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. Thank you very much wherever you are, and I see you soon. Be a responsible digital citizen.
Thank you, Paul, for this session, and we thank our panelists. Now we are about to start the third session, entitled Present and Future of E-commerce, and we will have a good number of players in that industry. So stay tuned. In the next 5 minutes, we will welcome our panelists. Thank you. So welcome back to the session. Our third session of the day is present and future of e-commerce in the time of COVID-19. So we will have 3 panelists and one moderator. So our first panelist is Mrs. Clarisse Iribagiza. Clarisse is the Chief Executive Officer of Hehe, a leading technology company founded 10 years ago. Hehe vision is to enable Africans to live a life abundance by optimizing supply chain to match demand and supply. Since 2016, Clarisse has also served as a member of the African Development Bank's Presidential Youth Advisory Group that provides an important platform to the bank to hear directly from young changemakers on ways to harness the skills, talents, and ideas of African youth. In 2019, Clarisse was appointed to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development as a need trade for women advocate. Welcome. Our second panelist is Mr. Pierre Kaitana. Pierre Kaitana is a strategic thinker and technology transformation champion. He's a seasoned telecommunication engineer who has served on tech startup boards which have provided him with necessary skills to understand strategic business environment, good governance, and what a company key drivers needs to remain relevant. Currently, Pierre is Airtel Rwanda director, and he couples that role with regulatory and government relations at Airtel. Our third panelist will join us online, Mrs. Diane Sainzoga. Since 2017, she's head of Special Economic Zone and Export Department at Rwanda Development Board. And prior to that, she worked with the International Trade Center as advisor in the Office of Executive Director under Mo Ibrahim Leadership Fellowship Program. Welcome to Dan. And to moderate our session, we have Mr. Alex Ntale. Alex is a Chief Executive Officer of Rwanda ICT Chamber, where his work involves bridging the gap between private and public sector players in the ICT industry, as well as overseeing establishing new innovation center for technology startup, among them K-Lab, Fab Lab, Rwanda, and New Applied Research Lab. With no further ado, welcome, Alex. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists. Just reminding those that are following us online to observe social distancing. We're observing social distancing ourselves here. That's why you see us with open, without the masks on. So, and please engage. We're gonna be asking questions, but also sharing ideas on YouTube, Twitter, as well as on Zoom. And the hashtag is what you see actually on the screens. And to start off, I want to go straight to Diane, the representative here from Rwanda Development Board. Last year, we witnessed the signing of an agreement between Rwanda or RDB and Alibaba, EWTP. And to the Rwandans or to the e-commerce community, the question now, having seen how COVID-19 has impacted on e-commerce, we would want to know what opportunities do you see for e-commerce platforms and companies in Rwanda? If we can get Diane, I don't know if she's on now.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting RDB to join this interesting session. My names are Diane Sainzoga, as you said, and then I'm the head of export at RDB, and under our portfolio, we also have the promotion of e-commerce. And coming back to your question about the opportunities under e-commerce in Rwanda, so I can say the opportunities are there and are under 2 categories. First of all, at local level or national level, e-commerce present a very big opportunity specifically for young entrepreneurs because now due to COVID, the home delivery is growing. And then for that, we have seen a number of companies who are now investing in e-commerce, and they are doing home delivery. And as opposed to what we used to see where people have to go in the market, and now they are sitting in their homes and then making orders and so on. So another opportunity for the local market, it's about like the B2B matchmaking sessions online, specifically on the side of industries, where they are trying now to connect online, and that is something we are not used to have, but currently, given the situation of the lockdown and so on, we have seen industries trying to develop their online presence and then trying to attract clients online. And there is also an opportunity in that online transactions. I can say, like, currently we have like the digital healthcare services available now online, which means you can consult a doctor online and being treated online. All of these are the kind of online opportunities we have in the country. And the market is still growing because e-commerce is like a new topic we have in the country, and we don't yet have a number of operators who are in that service. So during this period, we have seen the trend increasing, but it's not yet enough. We still need more businesses to invest in e-commerce. So that's what I can say regarding the local online trading. Then the cross-border trading, that is where you talked about the Alibaba opportunity. As you are aware, we have a partnership with Alibaba Group, and the objective is to promote the Rwandan e-commerce ecosystem in general. So which means the partnership is looking at different areas, starting from e-commerce itself regarding online trading, which means Alibaba is facilitating Rwandan companies to trade their product online. So far, we have coffee, which is now being traded online on Alibaba platform. And I can say that the price is better compared to other markets. And we also have chili, as well as tourism packages. So all those goods and services are being traded online on Alibaba platforms. In addition to that, we also have a partnership in terms of capacity building, where Alibaba is training local companies and trying to help them, support them in terms of skills, upgrading their technologies, connecting with partners, and then to try to see if in the coming 2, 3, 5, or 10 years, we will be having other Alibaba's platform in Rwanda. So the objective is to build the capacity of local companies and make sure that in the coming years, they are at the level of being strong and competing internationally, and even being at the same level as Alibaba. So that's what I can say for the moment. Thank you.
Starting with the work that you've been doing at DMM Hehe, over the years, connecting SMEs to digital platforms, could you share what the experience has been over the this COVID-19 pandemic, and how that could have actually has helped them?
We have seen maybe over 20% growth in uptake in terms of businesses getting online. And it's been an opportunity for businesses to engage with e-commerce. They've heard about it, but now they were in a position where it was probably one of the ways, if not the only way, that they could remain operational or continue to offer their products or services to their audience. So there was an opportunity for them to, try to give it a test drive. And there was a lot of support in terms of some of the things that had initially held businesses back. They were worried, who should we trust? What kind of, support is out there for us? And we saw a lot of institutions coming to, not only basically endorse some of the service providers that were enabling businesses to get online, but also continue to support them, to support SMEs, whether it was through information that they needed to know, some kind of support that they needed to get just to be able to get online. So we've seen a lot of that happening. And hopefully it's enabled businesses to take that leap of faith and not be afraid to try online business.
You talked about the fact that there were some support programs, endorsements, and all that. But in terms of what you would, how you would characterize, and you mentioned some of it in terms of the speed at which the growth has happened from work that went from the work over 5 years, and within 3 or 6 months, we've seen a different jump. What would you say has been the biggest contributor in your view, apart from the fact that people were locked in their houses? Apart from, what would you say was the biggest contributor from a demand side, if any?
I would say that the availability of the infrastructure, because when you look at the past, even though, let's say, there was internet, there were issues like maybe digital payments or the last mile delivery not all being linked into one chain to allow for that end-to-end experience for a consumer or for a business to get online. So the availability of the infrastructure and infrastructure aggregators, if I may call it that, who are able to put all these pieces together and make it as easy as possible for a business to just, have a one-stop shop to be able to get online. I think that was a very significant contributor. Even in terms of digital payments, seeing how the telcos just being able to plug in easily for vendors, and I guess Pierre will speak more to that. But those are some of the things that in the past where it was an uphill battle for a business just to be able to get online. But outside of COVID, I would say that the infrastructure being readily available, the service providers to aggregate that and simplify the process for a business was the second most significant contributor to the growth.
Would you say this would have been different had it happened 5 years ago?
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. Being in this space for the last 10 years, I can attest to a lot of products and ideas in the e-commerce space that we had to let go of, that we had to let die, simply because some of the infrastructure was missing. Yeah. It was a little bit ahead of its time. So the timing was also right.
I'm going to come back to that and on the journey, the journey that prepared you for such a point that you're able to take advantage of the opportunity. But I want to jump to Pierre. Clarisse mentioned the fact that integration of payments and infrastructure being present actually played a big role. What would you say, how have you seen yourselves as an MNO and maybe other MNOs? What role have you guys been playing in the background?
I'm so glad to be present on this panel from a telecom operator perspective. I will start by maybe using a strong statement by saying that the COVID recovery will be digital. So I've seen it and I've experienced it by the fact that when there was an outbreak in mid-March in Rwanda, from the very day of the first cases, there was a full attention now on how will telecom operators like ourselves will support in many aspects. There is not only spreading communications to citizens. Secondly, we've been also very instrumental in the entire process of contact tracing and many things. So more than ever before, a telecom became so paramount to the vitality of every operations of a pandemic containment. So back to the digital payment, us as telecom became a very key enabler to what Clarisse just talked about. So we've been building digital payment as a non-financial operator. So beside our voice and SMS and data services, we've been building the e-money business for a number of years. I think in 2020, this will be done. Yes, Mr. Money is turning 10 years in 2020. And during the pandemic, when you see the amount of work that was put in just 8 weeks to ensure that anyone is able to pay for services such as e-commerce, paying on e-commerce platform. Is an enormous work that was done to be able to be more of a mode of payment that is appropriate for e-commerce. So we've done a number of things, and most particularly during the pandemic, during the lockdown period in Rwanda, we were a great support by making sure that, one, we zero-rated this service, to be part of the journey and to create more adoption. So we zero-rated person-to-person transfer. We zero-rated merchant payment, such as DMM, and other e-commerce platform. When a subscriber will make a payment, there will be no fee. And now, most importantly, how do people get e-money on this market? In higher percentage, they go through an agent. But because the agent were not on the streets, so we've actually facilitated both merchants like Clarice and banks by creating an integration where as a user can pull money from his bank and have it in his mobile, and from there be able to make different payment left, right. So we saw what we call bank to wallet transfer grow by 250% during the lockdown, because this was the only way of bringing e-money in the ecosystem. So all in all, in what I said, we've just been a key enabler.
So 400, I think holistically average was about 400.
400, yes. Yeah. There was a 400 growth because during the lockdown, at least, this was the only way to make payment or to access funds due to lack of movement. But most definitely is that the people who've been able to convert to become, digital payment users during the pandemic period have also quickly become converted for good. I don't think
that's what I was going to ask next. How do we keep them? Because in my neighborhood, there seems to be this attraction to cash again, and say, but add transaction fees, so how do we ensure that the people we're converting actually are staying? Yes, or what trends have you seen?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one, because we, first of all, we created the appetite during the difficult moment, unprecedented time. We created an appetite. Even for those who had never used the service, got to use the service. And when we came back, by the way, we have cut the fees by up to 70% reduction. So you find that when someone is transferring money, or when someone is trying to cash out the money, if there's really a need for cash, these fees after the lockdown, when the fees went back in end of July, were cut by 70%. And we want to send out the message that the more users we have on this platform, the more users keep money in the ecosystem by not cashing out. These fees will continue over the years to be reduced because there is a strong element of cost of cash. So the moment money remains digital, it helps everyone in the ecosystem, and these fees will relatively be lowered over the time as adoption grows. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want to just come back to the question that I proposed earlier. What prepared you for this? How has this journey been to be at this point where you're saying, okay, I was ready when the wave came?
Thank you very much, Alex. I will say that we've always seen digital trade or e-commerce as the future. So what COVID did was simply catalyze what we already anticipated. And, when you look at the trend globally, already this was something that was happening. We talk about Alibaba. These were things that people are already doing, and these are practices that consumers will start to demand for. As we get a taste of Alibaba, we sell our own coffee, to the rest of the world. businesses will start to demand for this, consumers will start to demand for this. So just that foresight to see that this is what the future is going to look like.
Did you meet a prophet who told you this is what the future is?
No,
For 10 years ago, you were a university student. I really want to come to this, that a student who is at university, what do you think they should be anticipating? How should they also be anticipating e-commerce?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, we went to China. That's how we saw it. But you went back to 10 years ago, and I think it's always been at the core for us to try and understand what the customer wants. How can we improve the customer's life? And depending on if your customer is an SME or it's the actual end consumer, that constant question that you ask yourself, and this is to respond also, what can a young person at the university be thinking of right now? Look at a problem, try to figure out how to solve it, and a lot of these answers are already writing on the wall. It's pretty much clear, and you can see what others have done. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And this is also another thing that we did. We looked at what people were doing elsewhere and tried to contextualize and try to see how can that fit our context, how can we own e-commerce for ourselves. And I'll say this is something really critical even for us as we take examples from Alibaba or Amazon or whoever. We really do need to come back here to our context and try to make it make sense for our businesses and our consumers. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Yes, you can innovate and come up with new ideas, but you can also learn from others to get started.
Pierre, reinventing the wheel, yes, but if our consumers, a majority of our consumers are really people that maybe we've seen that there's a digital literacy gap, how is Airtel addressing this?
I think learning is continuous. I'd always been extremely confident from day one. When you remember when we were launching the e-money business, that's like 10, 11 years ago, was someone will come with a bunch of cash, and he's actually senior, he's working, let's say, in a bank. He'll come with a bunch of cash to an agent and say, I don't know how to do it. This is the number, just send the money. So at that time, I was in the business, and I was always confident that, this same person who comes with a bunch of cash and say, I don't want to know, I don't want to do it, I don't want to make a mistake, will be a champion tomorrow. And things like COVID situation have actually catalyzed this, as Clarice say. But learning is a journey, and everybody learn at his pace. So as a telecom, what we do, beside doing business, we have been involved in a number of programs, educational program, with support from the Ministry of ICT, ICT Chamber, PSF. We've been on the ground on a monthly basis, running ICT campaign, demonstrating technology to real communities in different parts of the country, showing them that it's possible, it's easy, it's affordable, it's convenient and safe. So we've invested for many years in those kind of programs. Technically as well, we've been building solutions that are also accessible for people who are offline and those who are online. For example, these kind of USSD, SMS-based technologies have been also built for those who cannot afford a smartphone or who are entering the internet slowly. For the other group, we've also now quickly designed apps where people are now enjoying a self-service. So our vision is to stop the dependency on agents in the future. So basically what is going to happen is that...
What jobs are they going to do if you automate their work?
It's a whole debate on automation.
Robotics.
and robotics, but it's what I want to say, just not to make the debate too long, is it's not an either or. It is always a question of those who will be able to do it for themselves or to embrace technology will do, but also there's always something new There's always something new. Technology, I think different studies have shown that the internet and technology and automation have not really replaced jobs, but it has made people smarter, and they are now used to be more and more relevant to tasks that are more useful to them. So we've started a journey where, as we increase satisfaction by reducing dependency on agents, there are apps where people can do self-service, can enjoy giving them self-service at any time, and quality service. Besides this, we've also created, we have also partnered with people who are in education. For the case of Airtel, for example, we have zero-rated internet for, actually during the lockdown, we've zero-rated internet for all learning education institutions. So through REB and other institutions could access e-learning platform at no fee without internet. As long as they have an Airtel SIM, they could access different websites. We've also just partnered with a program that gives digital literacy and education for people in hospitality business. So this is a way for us, how we see us being part of the whole effort of making people illiterate. So we will continue to do more at different levels. And finally, in terms of learning, Clarissa and I, who were on the panel, were in China, thanks to government of Rwanda. We were in China last year in March. We've learned a great deal of seeing what the future will look like. We went to Alibaba Business School and Alibaba headquarters, and we got a glimpse of starting to see what will the future will look like.
Okay. So you've seen the future. You can share the future with us so that some of these entrepreneurs and innovators can also be ready. I want to, as we wrap up, I know we're getting to the last minutes. I want to hear from Clarisse. What lessons can you say you're picking out of COVID-19? I know everything, good and bad, always has a lesson. What would you say the lessons that you've picked up as a company?
First lesson is digital e-commerce is not just the business of technology companies. It's every business is business. So they ought to be paying attention to the trends that are happening globally, with or without COVID, because that is the future. We've talked about how we've seen all the things that are happening. I think that's the first point. That's the first lesson that I learned from this. We cannot ignore that. Secondly, we need to be agile and be okay with it. If we need to pivot our businesses to, adopt maybe some new way of receiving payments or some new way of delivering goods to our customers or some new way of engaging with them, businesses need to be agile and open to doing that. That's another lesson that I've learned from this pandemic. And last but not least, try out new things. Take that leap of faith and try new things for your business to see if it will work. If it doesn't, well and good, but be willing to take that leap of faith.
Thank you. So we're beginning to get questions from the audience, and Pierre, someone here is asking, recently, or was it yesterday, there was an announcement of your competitor who announced an API platform for apps and companies or startups that want to plug into their mobile money payment platforms. What would you say are the What would you say are the initiatives that Airtel Money is coming up with?
Yes, thanks, Alex. I'm actually happy to have just joined the role last week of Airtel Money Director, and part of my vision and top priority was to start sending a signal to the market and to all the innovators, especially who are into e-commerce or different apps development or website that require payment, we want to start sending a signal across that we are the most open platform to connect to. It requires a number of steps before we portray that image, but this is a top priority for me, for myself, and for the company now to be the most open. Before we go into Open API, there's still hundreds of partners in this ecosystem to which we can connect directly. But of course, we'll end up, the big vision is to be the most open and have these facilities where people can plug and play and start receiving payment. Not only for us, but also we can easily, for example, connect them to other modes of payment through our existing multi-interconnection that are already existing. So it's really part of my plan, and you should stay tuned and see how we'll play around in that.
Someone here is reminding me Airtel slogan, the smartphone network. So with a population that has a very low penetration of smartphones, do you think this is something that is going to change soon? The first panel was marathons, talking about they're made in Rwanda smartphones. What do you see the trend here?
One thing is that us as Telecom, who are not in like marathon in the business of selling device, we first of all make sure that for whoever gets a smartphone, whoever who can afford a smartphone, we want to offer him the best different options and a good network that allows him to be, wherever he is, be able to access the internet and affordably. You've seen how we've been making changes in terms of pricing to make data more and more affordable. We also have some close partnership that we're entering into with Marathon to be able to create a model where someone can access a smartphone and pay in installment over the month.
Actually, I was going to ask about that because Airtel introduced this about 4 or 5 years ago. And
Yes, so that program has actually made many people in corporate businesses, government, and business in general access smartphones through that model.
The people usually who can afford it.
Yes, but it's some smartphones also have categories. Some smartphone were really the high-end smartphone where someone could afford it in 3 or 6 months, not in one shot. So in that space, we have managed to cover the gap. So now we're looking at motorcyclists and the other category of people who want a local smartphone but still can't afford a $50, $100 smartphone. So we're cracking our head to find a formula for those ones. But the data pricing also matters, so we've also managed to design different offers that caters for everyone, depending on his need and his usage and what he favors like to see on the internet.
Thank you. I'm going to jump to Diane on as the department or as an office that is in charge of promoting exports. What would you say have been the lessons that you've picked out of this pandemic, and what changes or what improvements can we anticipate?
So first of all, the pandemic comes in with a number of challenges, which means the transport cost increased. Even the transport itself, it was difficult to send product from Rwanda to abroad. It means airlines were not operating. So all those challenges really affected a lot the export sector in general. And in addition to that, there is a number of companies who are sourcing raw materials from out of the country. So it was very difficult for them to access those materials and to continue their production process. So, and then with the pandemic, there is a number of preventive measures which were put in place, which means the reduction of workers to work only with 30% of employees, the social distancing, and so on. So all those requirements really affected a lot the export sector in general. So you understand it was not easier for them to continue to perform or to even manage to export, at least to remain at where they were before the pandemic. So most of them really, they have seen their export revenues decreasing. So which means the lesson we learned from this pandemic is it's going digital. It means everyone has to go digital, which means those who are looking for raw materials, they have to start thinking on sourcing from online platforms. And those who are selling abroad, they have to get the culture of building business relationships online. Start having online B2B sessions. Instead of, you know, we used to have exhibitions where we are taking exporters from Rwanda, they are going to attend international exhibitions, but now it's not possible. So which means now we are attending online exhibition. Everything is going digital now, either from the sourcing of raw materials, from connecting with buyers, networking, signing contracts, everything is now being done online. So it means that the biggest lessons we get from this pandemic is that everything has to start to be done online and make sure that we are concluding our deals while we are staying in the country. So we don't have to move from, let's say, from Rwanda to China to conclude a deal. That is something which can be done online. Thank you.
I have a question here. I don't know, maybe something that you've already alluded to, but in terms of the opportunities that you highlighted, most of them seem, most of them seem to be addressing people exporting goods. Are there any particular initiatives that are targeting companies that are exporting services? That's the question we have here for you, Diane.
Yes, so yes, from the opportunities I mentioned, services are not excluded. That is where I talked about export of tourism services, for instance. So tourism packages are available on Alibaba platforms. So that is an export of services. So and even in all our interventions, all the support we are providing to different companies or exporters, so we are also considering service sector, ICT, those who are exporting ICT services or any other services. So it means when we are conducting a market research, or when we are selecting companies to participate in a given export promotion program, we also consider the service sector, because we realize that service, it's a very big potential export for Rwanda, because, you know, given the geographic location of the country, sometimes the transport is difficult. But when it comes to service, it's easier to export those services. In most of the case, people are just traveling with their brain. They are exporting their knowledge, their skills. They don't have to pay for, let's say, cargo transport. So it's easier to promote and to do export of services than doing export of goods. So therefore, we are supporting, we are integrating service companies in all our programs. For instance, we have the Export Development Program, and under that program, we have a number of ICT companies who are participating in the program, and they are attending or they are receiving all the facilitations we are providing. Thank you.
Thank you. There seems to be more interest in what RDB is doing. A question here, two questions, maybe they'll be the last since we're wrapping up. One, do you have any market intelligence on export destinations for both goods and services? The other one is for exporting companies in the special economic zone. Are there any opportunities for matching them with e-commerce platform providers, local e-commerce platform providers?
So thank you so much. Regarding the market intelligence, yes, we are conducting market research, market intelligence, and we are uploading some of those information on our website, RDB website. But if what you want is not available online, you can contact directly our desk here at RDB. There is a team in charge of conducting market research, market intelligence. They can give you all the information you are looking for. And regarding the connection of the companies operating in the zone, actually we are having different sessions on a regular basis where we are inviting business from the industrial zone, and we are connecting them with online platforms, the platforms already available in the country. So to make sure that if someone is operating in the zone, he can automatically connect to an online platform and start selling. And most of the companies operating in the zone, actually, they are very interested in connecting with online platforms. So maybe for the person who asked the question, maybe we will invite him for the next or for the upcoming session, because we are doing it on a regular basis. Maybe you missed the previous sessions, but for the upcoming session, we shall consider you. Thank you.
We got 3 minutes. I want to give a minute and a half to Clarice to inspire some of these young people out there. I know some of them look up to you as an entrepreneur who's made it here in Rwanda locally. So any last words for them, please?
Oh, that's a tough one, but I think I always just say that there's so many problems out there that we could solve if we put our minds to it, and that's where the opportunity lies. I think that we sometimes assume that somehow the opportunities will land on our laps without any effort being put in, and sometimes we glamorize the journey that is taken by entrepreneurs. I'll say it's problem solving is tough. You need to roll up your sleeves, go out there, look for a problem that you are passionate about, not any random problem, because you need that passion, that connection to that problem for you to keep pushing through the tough times when you need to, which will come. But for you to be able to figure out what it is that you want to do to achieve what you define as success, whatever that might be, I would say roll up your sleeves, go out there, solve someone's problem. Enough people that have that problem will lead to growth for you, and you had better be passionate about that problem that you're trying to solve, and don't expect it to be an easy journey. It's going to be a rough one, but if you have the right support system around you, the right ecosystem around you, you'll be able to battle it through.
Thank you very much, Clarice. Pierre, you've been around the country, literally every corner of this country. You've been there connecting people. And you've also been to the future, apparently, through China. So for the young entrepreneur, for the innovator, for the citizen, what problems have you seen in the countryside that you think they should be zooming into?
I think, as you say, being fortunate to have been in different sites and learn from there. I think also the experience with COVID and the lockdown is that I think people need to be super prepared to be able to improvise. So, to be able to improvise with all this changing environment, with what the internet is bringing and technology is bringing, people need to be extremely prepared to be able to start improvising at some point. So when there are problems, when it's dark, when there are problems, it also means that there is opportunity. I was also seeing all this value chain, people in tea, coffee, potatoes in the north part of Rwanda. Yeah. All these issues of distribution call for a young entrepreneur to go there and look deeper and invest in a bit of technology to resolve this problem. And And this is what we've been, for example, able to learn through the program when we went to in China to see how someone from a village knows his customer who are spread all over the world, knows when to produce, what to produce, where to deploy, and use technology in all this process. So there's an amount of problems in distribution, and there's also an amount of solutions that can be applied in that specific area of our economy. Yes.
Thank you very much. So problem solving is a tough one. It's not glamour. We're sitting in a very beautiful space. It's an innovation space. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Richter team that has put on this Rwanda Internet Governance Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for a good debate with our panelists. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to our event. We are still in Rwanda IGF 2020, where we were talking about internet for ICT and innovation in Rwanda. We started, it's been like 4 hours actually ago, and we talked about different aspects of internet governance, and we spoke about the affordability, we talked about the access, as well as the digital citizenship, and we concluded with the future, the present and the future of e-commerce. And one of the things that we said about the future is that it's still a learning process for everyone, and then we need to be agile to adapt, particularly resulting to what happens right now with the COVID-19. So we thank everyone who is still with us. We're about to start our 4th session, which is Startup Act and AI Policy. And to take us through, that, we have Leah. Leah, who is actually from GIZ, and she's going to be with us with Yolanda, and they're going to join us online. So we welcome them and to take over and start the session on the AI. Thank you.
It's really exciting to have the opportunity to discuss with you the AI policy development in Rwanda. Before we dive into that, and that is something that Yolanda then later will do from the Future Society, I would like to give you a really quick introduction to the Fair Forward project and the work the German Development Corporation is doing to support the local AI ecosystem in Rwanda. Fair Forward is a project that is derived from, is derived from the German AI national strategy, which stipulates that German Development Corporation is supporting partner countries in developing their own AI ecosystems to develop local solutions for local challenges. And we do so in 5 countries currently, which besides Rwanda, South Africa, Ghana, Uganda, and India. And we are basically addressing the 3 ingredients that you need in order to develop these local solutions. The first being skills and education for artificial intelligence. The second one is improving access to AI training data and open models to develop applications for artificial intelligence. And the third part is then the development of actual policy frameworks, which will serve as the foundation for AI for the public good. And we do so on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and our main partner in Rwanda is RURA. I will just really quickly talk about all 3 of these pillars so you get an impression of what we are actually doing, and then we will take a look at the AI policy. So our work in Rwanda is focusing on all 3 of these pillars. So for instance, in the skills and education part, we are doing machine learning trainings, we are hosting AI meetups, and we are currently starting an AI fellowship program, which targets students with bachelor degrees and an engineering background to gain in-depth knowledge of artificial intelligence through courses online and offline, and also personal mentorship. And one of the main parts here is a 3-month placement in the private or public sector with a concrete project to actually really experience AI applications firsthand, and also help the public sector and the private sector to capitalize on the potential of artificial intelligence. The second pillar which we address in Rwanda is the collection of Kino Rwanda open voice data, which is one of our really flagship programs that we are implementing together with the Mozilla Foundation and with the local startup Digital Uganda. And here we already have been able to collect one of the largest open data sets for voice data after English, with more than 1,000 hours of open speech data. And that serves as a foundation to develop natural language processing and especially speech applications, which will give people in Rwanda access to services and information. And one very specific use case we are working on currently is the development of a COVID-19 chatbot in cooperation with RISA and the Rwanda Biomedical Center to make COVID-19 information available to everyone using speech recognition technology. And here again, Mozilla supports a local developer team to develop this kind of application and the model that is needed behind this. And the third pillar in Rwanda, of course, is, as I mentioned in the beginning, the policy framework development. And that is a process which we facilitate together with MinICT and RURA. They are leading this process, and it's an agile, multi-stakeholder process. So we are very much interested to hear from different voices within the Rwandan society on how to develop an AI policy framework for Rwanda, which then can serve as a foundation for responsible use of artificial intelligence in the country and applications that serve the public good, as well as economic growth and sustainable development. This guideline is going to include also ethical guidelines for artificial intelligence, and we especially help also to benchmark with the European Union and with other fair forward partner countries in order to really leverage the potentials that we see in the global AI debate currently around how to structure such an AI policy and how to develop ethical guidelines, which really can help and lead onto the responsible and trustworthy use of this new technology. And this AI policy framework is implemented by GIZ with the support of the Future Society. And I'm happy to hand over now to Yolanda, who is from the Future Society, and who will dive deeper into the whole AI policy framework for us and with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. So as Leah kindly explained, the Future Society is the knowledge partner. Is this shown, the PowerPoint? Is the knowledge partner for GIZ Fair Forward, who is implementing the development of a national artificial intelligence strategy for Rwanda, led by MinICT and RURA. So I'm here now to tell you a little bit more about that project very briefly, and then to learn from you to inform this strategy in a Q&A in about 5 minutes. So the objectives are to develop a national AI strategy to support AI adoption and accelerate Rwanda's development objectives. This can help Rwanda to harness AI for growth, sustainable growth, while also mitigating risks that come with AI. The goal is to equip MinICT and RURA and other stakeholders and empower AI entrepreneurs and developers, many of you in the audience today. The MinICT and RURA really want to create an enabling environment for AI adoption. So that's our goal. And we will do this through a policy strategy and report. It also will include AI ethical guidelines, as Leah mentioned, a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats for AI readiness in Rwanda, and a detailed implementation plan to actually turn this into action. It's important to note that this does not fall from the sky and reinvent the wheel. Rather, the AI strategy fits into the already existing ICT policies, which all head towards coherently the national objectives, towards sustainable and inclusive economic growth and social growth, to position Rwanda as a regional and Africa ICT and AI hub. And it's about a 9-month process. Right now, we are working on the SWOT analysis and we're conducting expert interviews. We just had a stakeholder workshop with some of you from the audience as well. And we will have another one, which we invite you to participate in towards the end. So as you see here, yes, so we're doing the SWOT analysis. We're going to fit this into the existing policies, develop the ethical guidelines, and develop implementation plan. And all of these fit into Smart Rwanda Master Plan, ICT Sector Strategic Plan, and others. And we're really focused on learning from you and entrepreneurs and companies and government stakeholders as well to make sure that this works and is meeting all of the stakeholders' needs. So we know of many applications of AI today, and in our workshop, we had panelists, some of whom might be here today actually, speaking about what they see as opportunities and applications in banking for example, credit approval, pre-approving credit loans or microloans, in health for remote imaging and diagnostics, in public services to assess and rapidly deliver services, and others. But then agriculture as well. Right now we see the top sectors as banking, agriculture, education, and health. But we also know that while AI brings opportunities for sustainable growth and sector adoption and government services, it also brings important risks. So this is why the AI ethical guidelines will be so important, because while we want to accelerate innovation and equip entrepreneurs are also, and citizens are also very concerned about privacy, for example, and different risks the AI can bring, failures and challenges. We know that pre-trained machine learning algorithms from other countries might not be fit for Rwanda context. But at the same time, how do we scale up with some projects and support AI adoption while mitigating these risks at the same time? So we start with a set of international principles for AI ethics. And from this, we're basically trying to understand what the priorities are for Rwandans. And this leads me to my question session. I'm going to show some questions now, which would really help us to develop the AI strategy, starting with a SWOT analysis. But you're also welcome to suggest in the chat other questions about the strategy as a process in itself, which Leah and I will try to answer on behalf of all of the partners. So here are some questions that will really help us in developing the AI strategy. We'd love to hear from you. We're asking these in expert interviews. We asked these in the workshop. Okay, there's already a question from the audience as well. Yep, good question. So maybe if there's a Q&A option I'm seeing in this Zoom webinar for questions, as well as we can use the chat function. So I just wonder if I can see both the chat and share screen. So feel free to start typing in some questions or responses while I try to locate this. And if there are any people on audio as well, feel free to chime in. Here's the chat. Okay, so the first question I want to ask is, what are some of the top capabilities or strengths for AI adoption in Rwanda? what are some of the top challenges or weaknesses? So yourselves as people in business and entrepreneurs, what are constraints that if you could say, we really want the strategy, the national AI strategy to include this, to address this key constraint we have. And you can think of the opportunities and strengths in terms of the entrepreneurship ecosystem, in terms of digital infrastructure, in terms of talent, investment, regulation, precautions for ethical risks. And then we can also discuss how to increase AI literacy across the country to make sure that more people are aware of both the opportunities and risks so that they can think about small scale applications, or they can be aware of if they're asked to contribute data to something, they're aware of the risks for security and privacy and others. And there's also an ethical question at the end of this screen, which is AI developers face challenges in accessing data. However, we also know that data privacy precautions and rules are important. So for Rwanda, getting back to these ethical principles, how do you see the balance between supporting innovation and mitigating risks? And what are some potential suggestions you suggest? And I'm actually not sure, are attendees able to type in the chat? There's also the Q&A function, which you should please refer to. Great, we have some comments. One comment, introduction and ongoing incremental AI education is one of the biggest challenges we've identified, indeed. Something that's coming out of the discussions we've been having in the workshop and the interviews, which we can validate in this section, is the need to equip, while Rwanda has excellent institutions, higher education institutions for AI at CMU and AIMS and centers of excellence, there's a need for more practical experience for graduates. So one suggestion would be fostering partnerships, internships, small pilot projects with companies and startups, preferably in Rwanda, but if not abroad, to facilitate this talent development. And this can also help smaller companies or bigger companies to start experimenting with AI and start to see the value, because there is some timidness to invest in AI adoption.
Yeah, that is exactly what we are trying to address with the AI Fellowship program and the Skills in Education pillar of the Fair Forward project. But of course, it makes sense to invest on a much bigger scale into the AI skills development and literacy development of the Rwandan population.
Mm-hmm. There was also a question in the Q&A about some successfully implemented AI projects. There's a lot. I think right now AI adoption is still slow, obviously even in developed contexts, but more and more AI startups are working on important use cases in Rwanda and abroad, for example, in precision agriculture or in health or in education. And I think right now we're at the point of we're educating about the opportunities and selling the value proposition while also starting to practice with these small projects. So that's great, Leah. And we're also happy to send the summary report of the workshop. We can send that out because there, some of the Rwandan panelists mentioned some of the use cases that they're working on and experimenting on in their companies. For example, in banking, using chatbots and pre-approving loans, or in tax collection, actually. trying to identify fraudulent payments or lack thereof. So we really see applications across sectors. So feel free to mention in the chat, right? I can continue to talk about what we're learning, but it would be best to learn from you. And also, if you don't have, also feel free to send suggestions to me directly at the email address at the bottom of the slide here, because we really want to use this as an opportunity to learn from you about what to include in the strategy. Okay, until then, I'll talk about some of the findings, if that's interesting. Oh, here's a question. A great challenge is talent. A key solution is to make a linear progression. For fully mature digital transformation phase, and then apply AI transformation. Indeed, it's really interesting to think about the AI strategy in the context of the digital strategy and digital development. One concern that's coming up is lack of access to affordable compute in Rwanda, where local data must be stored in Rwanda. Some other challenges are that data might be high quality or accessible, but maybe not but regulated by different regulatory agencies differently, or stored in silos so that it's difficult to kind of connect the dots among different data types to develop solutions. Any other thoughts? Hopefully you'll all email me with your suggestions. Yes, worth looking at the AI strategy of Malta. Indeed, our project is actually building on much more than the Spanish and USA experience. The Future Society has extensive experience in national artificial intelligence strategies. So I can tell you more about us. So we're a nonprofit AI governance think and do tank, so to speak. And our mission statement is to advance the responsible adoption and governance of AI and emerging technologies to benefit society. We've mapped about 20 plus national AI strategies in partnership with the World Bank Digital Development. And this is our starting point, where we know what some of the top topics are that are included in national AI strategies, things like talent development, entrepreneurship support, data access, ethical guidelines, sector adoption. And we know some of the policy tools that are used for these, which vary a lot based on the countries. So which vary a lot from directly funding startups and master's degrees to fostering partnerships and collaborations with academic institutions, with foreign companies. But now we need to apply that for Rwanda. So that's where we're really trying to understand, especially with the ethical question, to tailor this really for what's most appropriate and fit for the Rwanda context. If you have suggestions for key sectors as well that are both, quote, low-hanging fruit that might have data and talent readily available, or which are more high impact, this is important for Rwanda, this will really help to accelerate growth, you can send those along as well. Otherwise, I suggest we keep this open for another minute, see what comments come in, and then I maybe pass this back to our moderators. And feel free to suggest which types of skills and talent are particularly lacking and differentiate between data engineering, data science, et cetera, as well as lower education and higher education initiatives, because we have the opportunity to suggest policies. Okay, well, we're on time if we stop here, I suppose, unless there's any other questions or thoughts. And we'll hand it back to the MC. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, very much, very much, very much, very much, very much.
Thank you very much to our last session. So we thank everyone who joined us, and we hope to see you the next time. So right now there is one last presentation that will be introduced by Alex Ndale, that I've introduced prior, who is the CEO of the ICT Chamber. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much. So my role now is very simple. It's to introduce the Startup Act, Rwanda, which is a policy or a legislative framework that is being developed in partnership with the government and development partners, GIZ being the lead partner here. And maybe as way of introduction before we get the I4 policy team to present what's in the details and also interact with the audience to a degree. Over the years, what we have seen is that there's a lot of startup and innovative companies that are being born out of Rwanda, and also those that want to set up and come here and use Rwanda as their launch pad. But what has always been a challenge, there's been a few here and there in terms of the regulatory environment. We've had complaints, or rather, yes, complaints from the startup ecosystem claiming that most of the incentives and the incentive structure is designed for big companies that actually sometimes don't even need the incentives that have been set up. So we embarked on this journey. Rwanda is not the only country that is working on this. We've seen these in other countries through the partnership with Smart Africa. We've seen in Tunisia, in Senegal, in Ghana. Kenya last week also published their law for startups and promotion of startups. And our role as the chamber is, one of them is to advocate for the tech community and the tech ecosystem. And the Startup Act comes in as an instrument that we really appreciate the cooperation and the partnership that we have with the government that has listened to us. And we would want to get as much feedback from the ecosystem. And I4 Policy has been reaching out, running this as a very consultative effort and process. And we want to engage with you. We want to engage with you innovators, with you, the companies, the corporates as well, and everybody that touches. You could be an infrastructure provider, you could be a financier, you might be an educator, in academia, and we want to hear from you. So I will invite John right now to take us through how the process is going and the components of the Startup Act, and to maybe trigger that conversation that probably you've been waiting as an entrepreneur to pass on to the people that are in the legislative to make sure that the environment works for you. So with that, I'd like to invite John from I4 Policy, and so that he shares the framework and the process that is being used. Thank you. I'll come back maybe to close, but with that, I think he's very well equipped to take us to the end. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much for that introduction. And I think it actually is a nice way to build upon the session that you facilitated just before this current session, where I overheard Clarisse Iribagiza, obviously a very well-known, successful entrepreneur here in Rwanda, talk about the importance of a really supportive ecosystem to be able to nurture entrepreneurs and to nurture, successful tech-enabled businesses. So I'm here to provide a short presentation on this and also to offer some ideas of how you as the audience and entrepreneurs watching and listening in can contribute to this process, because as Alex mentioned, it's intended to be participatory. So I'll go ahead and pull up my presentation here just to talk you through a couple of key points about the Startup Act. All right, so as Alex mentioned, really the objective of this Startup Act is to really position Rwanda as a continent-leading startup ecosystem. And we've seen over the years the investments not only in ICT infrastructure, throughout the country with the fiber backbone, as well as the investments in education, et cetera. And of course, Rwanda's incredible performance on the Doing Business rankings over the years, positioning the country really to attract investment and to nurture startups. This is really consistent with all of the national strategies at the moment, ranging from Vision 2050 to the current National Strategy for Transformation, all the way through to the Made in Rwanda policy, which really emphasizes the nurturing of indigenous innovation and startups. So this this vision of creating a Startup Act, and some of you might be asking yourself, so what is a Startup Act? It's actually quite a new legislative instrument. So the Startup Act, the first Startup Act in Africa was actually passed in Tunisia just in 2018. And then in 2019, actually just in December last year, the government of Senegal passed the Startup Act, and then an act was passed in Mali. This kind of grows from a history of what are called small business acts, which is essentially a sort of legislative instrument that governments have used to sort of bundle a variety of strategic incentives and interventions to support small businesses. It's being recognized that obviously high growth firms have a huge role to play in the economy, driving a range of other development objectives in addition to employment and the job creation and sort of taxable base elements, but also touching on similar conversations that we were just hearing from the AI presentation. Essentially, the idea is, how can government support more indigenous innovation and at the same time job creation and growth? And so, Rwanda is coming on the back of essentially a number of these similar type of interventions. So I mentioned, Tunisia, Senegal, and Mali. Again, this is sort of arising from, in the early 80s, a law that was passed in Ghana, a Small Business Act. And you can see through this timeline that this sort of idea of legislating to support businesses is becoming increasingly common. In the last few years, this trend has really very much focused on supporting startups. So you see from Tunisia in the past few years, all of these laws are really focusing on startups. And as Alex actually just mentioned, the Kenyan government just released the draft Startup Act that's actually it should be read in the Kenyan Senate this Thursday, which would open up a 30-day period of public consultation. There's also a law that's imminent in the Democratic Republic of Congo before their National Assembly. The government of Ethiopia is also working on an entrepreneurship proclamation. And then there's a decree in Benin that is with the Ministry of ICT there. So there are a bunch of these ongoing initiatives. And I do want to highlight that, of course, although Rwanda is now just at the early stages of pursuing a Startup Act through a range of consultations, which included actually the Citizens Dialogue this morning, the government of Rwanda has for a number of years been supporting not just the sort of infrastructural elements and the doing business and sort of registration and regulation points, but has also offered some incentives under, for example, the investment code. So just because Rwanda is now pursuing a Startup Act, it's really, again, building on many investments over the past years. So as an example of what a Startup Act actually entails, we were very much involved actually in the Senegal process. And in fact, I should say that I'm quite honored to be back at the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum this year, because we spoke last year at the Internet Governance Forum to present the Citizens Dialogue that we supported last year to take place in Rwanda, and which of course this year was fully integrated into the national Rwandan IGF process. At the IGF last year, we spoke about the process to co-create the Senegalese Startup Act. So it's quite exciting to be back again this year to talk about this again, but in the context of a national reform process here in Rwanda. So I'll just talk through a little bit of the key elements of the Senegalese Startup Act. So we talk a little bit about this lawmaking process. And as Alex mentioned, the idea is for this to be really consultative, to recognize that entrepreneurs are really the experts in entrepreneurship, innovators are the experts in innovation, young people are the experts in youth employment. And so how can we really tap into your knowledge on this subject? So in Senegal, we actually organized more than 50 co-creation activities. We engaged more than 1,000 citizens. This resulted in more than 20 iterations of the startup law. And we used some innovative platforms. In fact, we were talking about chatbots just earlier in the AI session. We utilized a Facebook chatbot to be able to facilitate online discussions on the Startup Act and to receive feedback from people that might have lower bandwidth and unable, for example, using feature phones. So this consultation process actually took 19 months. It started very similar to the Rwandan process in the sense that the first step was to pull together a really strong coalition of government actors and also ecosystem players to be able to first identify that a reform was necessary and important. And then after that, we organized a policy hackathon in Senegal, very much like the policy hackathon we organized a few weeks ago here in Rwanda. And the results of that Senegalese process, which again took 19 months, was essentially two different laws. The first law was the Startup Act itself, which establishes benefits for Senegalese startups. So there's some tax incentives, it provides intellectual property support, some grants and loans, privileged access to the .sn domain, some public procurement preference, which is actually quite interesting in the sense that startups and also companies that work with startups receive additional points on their public procurement score when their tendering applications are being reviewed. So that's quite interesting to be able to give startups a leg up. And then in addition to that, the Senegalese Startup Act, it sort of in a broader sense, wasn't just around the specific Startup Act itself, it also led to broad-based reforms in the 2020 finance law in Senegal. So that actually resulted in benefits for all small businesses. And this is where we think that the process in Rwanda is also quite interesting in the sense that the conversations around supporting startups don't just touch on the sort of specific benefits and incentive frameworks, but touch on many other elements. For example, the data localization point, which was just mentioned, is an area that actually affects many startups, given the cost of storing data locally. So in the case of Senegal, the 2020 finance law, when I mentioned that it benefits all small businesses, it actually resulted in huge tax simplification in Senegal. They reduced rates from 11, they had 11 different tax rates before this law. Afterwards, they had 2. They reduced registration expenses by 60%, and they introduced actually a 3-year tax holiday for the lowest corporate income tax for small businesses to be able to give small businesses a leg up in the process of starting a business. So that's a bit of context about what we talk about when we talk about a Startup Act. Now, in the Rwandan case, the government has set 3 really important and very related objectives. The first is to support general business environment reforms. So to continue identifying areas in which startups can be supported through regulatory reforms or through, in some cases, even regulatory clarifications. So an example of this is the fact that we've heard from many startups that are interested in using employee share offer schemes to be able to remunerate and reward employees, especially as many startups, of course, are oftentimes cash strapped in the early days. It's kind of in a way, a definitional element of many startups is sort of investing all of their resources in growth. And so it's oftentimes beneficial and very much a sort of standard globally for startups to reward early stage employees with share offers or essentially equity in exchange for work. In the Rwandan case, it's actually been noted by many startups that there's a lack of clarification about when those employee share offer schemes become a taxable event. So that's an opportunity for us through this process to clarify some of the regulatory questions that exist, and to try and close some of the current gaps and make the environments in Rwanda even stronger. The second is that we want to work on improving startup growth infrastructure. So this is really around how do we build that supportive environment that Clarice talked about in the previous session. How do we support university students or other innovators in Rwanda to go from having an idea all the way through to the process of validating that idea, to building a business, and to growing that business. So this is what we talk about. We talk about improving startup growth infrastructure. That's about understanding what needs to be done to improve funding. We talk about here, some, increasing company valuations, for example, as a target of this reform. And then the third goal is on branding and positioning. So it's about how can Rwanda further position itself both globally in order to attract venture capital, and then of course also regionally under what has often been called a proof of concept country strategy that is essentially around how can Rwanda bring in business ideas that want to test market validation, that have a view to scale across the continent, and how can Rwanda attract those companies to Rwanda to headquarter themselves here, to test their ideas here, and then to be able to expand regionally with a Rwandan base. So those are the three primary objectives of the Rwandan Startup Act process. And mentioning the fact that, for example, Rwanda wants to attract venture capital, as some of you might know, the government is actually well underway in a process to build what is called the Kigali International Finance Center through a parastatal called the Rwanda Finance that was established by the Ministry of Finance. And essentially, Rwanda Finance is working right now to establish Rwanda as a financial hub. How can we attract foundations, venture capital funds to domicile in Rwanda and be able to invest in Rwandan companies, but also to position their investments with a view to investing globally. And so the point around this work is to make sure that we're touching on all of the existing initiatives that are underway, such as the recently passed entrepreneurship development policy. I mentioned Rwanda Finance. They're actually working on, currently reviewing 23 laws that are sort of under review by the government right now in this regard. So we're working to ensure that all of the efforts of this Startup Act process are fully aligned with everything else that the Rwandan government is doing to be able to really position Rwanda as the best destination for startups across the continent. So talk about this whole of government approach. This is just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. We have several different ministries that are involved, from the Ministry of ICT, which is leading this initiative, to the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Culture with youth, as well as the Ministry of Finance. The Rwanda Revenue Authority is supporting this initiative, as well as the Rwanda Information Society Authority, RDB, the Kigali Innovation City, RURA, the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, the ICT Chamber, of course, as Alex's introduction might have suggested, he's playing a really key role as actually one of the co-chairs of the Intergovernmental Task Force. And then in addition to that, the Smart Africa Alliance, as well as German Development Cooperation, are heavily involved in supporting this project and actually funding this initiative. So you see German Development Cooperation through SI Jobs, as well as the Make IT in Africa project, are both heavily involved in this intergovernmental task force that's driving this initiative. All right, so we talked about how you can get involved, and then I gave you a long presentation. I hope you don't mind. I saw that perhaps the Q&A for the session was a bit limited. So I thought perhaps I can give you a bit of information in this presentation and then end with a call to action. So we have built a website, actually fully designed. It's built on open source software built in Africa with a view to being able to listen to you, for you to be able to make proposals about what Rwanda can do to be able to support the startup ecosystem. So before I show you that website, I just want to reiterate the link. So it's quite simple. If you remember that there's a Startup Act, then you'll remember the domain. It's startupact.rw. And then you can always email our team at i4Policy at community@i4policy.org. So if you go to the website, you'll see again all of the partners that are working on this. Many ecosystem partners are also coming into the project to be able to support, to make sure that of course, the regulatory environment is really matching all of the support that these individual organizations themselves are seeking to give entrepreneurs. So when you go to the website, it'll ask you to join now if you haven't already, and I encourage you to do so. If you join, then it will bring you into a back end where we have several topics. These are aligned to the entrepreneurship. You see regulation, finance, human capital, support, culture, infrastructure, markets. The idea is to be able to listen to you and understand what are your proposals under each of these different thematic areas where Rwanda can support startup growth. So if you log into the platform, not only can you engage with some of the existing ideas that have been submitted to the platform, but you can also make your own proposals. I highly encourage everyone who's watching this, who's interested in growing Rwanda's startup ecosystem. If you have an idea that can support the government's development of the startup ecosystem, we really encourage you to be able to bring this idea into the platform. The purpose of this platform, again, is to crowdsource proposals from across the ecosystem, recognizing that many of you watching this talk now will have more understanding about the challenges faced by entrepreneurs than many people in government who may or may not have started businesses in the past. And so this is really an opportunity for the government to be able to listen to you. So with that, I know we're coming towards the close of the session, but there are a few minutes left if there are any questions. So I'll stop the screen share there and open it up to see if there are any questions coming in from the audience. And thank you very much for having me for this presentation.
Hi, thanks very much to John and the I4 Policy team. Yes, I'm gonna be tweeting this in a few minutes, but head to startupact.rw. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear what thoughts, what ideas you have that could fit into this this law that is geared on supporting and helping the startup ecosystem to be as vibrant as the Rwanda we want. So today was a very exciting time to see some old faces and new faces that made it to our venue that we're using here, a blended approach to dialogue. Rwanda IGF is always targeting to have a conversation and really to pick from our internet users and our internet community to get your thoughts, to get your ideas, and feed them into the policy making and frameworks and strategies. So I want to thank our sponsors, our partners, GIZ, and the entire team at DigiCenter that has made this blended approach to conferencing possible. But it would not have happened without sister organization, RICTA, Rwanda Internet Community Association, that really brings, that weaves all of us together as a community. So thank you for all those that participated in this, our panelists, our audience that has been on. This is gonna be on YouTube, so if you missed sessions, make sure that you log in on YouTube and follow this as well as on other social media. So thank you. It's been an exciting afternoon, and want to thank you again and remind you, head to www.startupact.rw and give us your input and make a contribution to the making of the law that focuses on startups. Thank you very much and have a great evening. See ya.